watched the movies but didn't read the books are now going, wait, did she say that? Yeah, she said in the books Angela is in a relationship with Ben, who does not exist in the movie. Why are you doing this weird diet? Humans don't live that long anyway. It was the vampire lore before. Now I just like your personality. Because the Cullens tribe is a real tribe that has its own beliefs and spirituality, and we're not gonna sit here after all she's been through. Leah just kind of deserves to have someone be passionately in love with her, and you know how I love that young and I want to be a vampire real bad, and you shower her with unwanted pageantry so that we get to have this self-insert beautiful wedding, but we don't have to worry about her being the kind of person who wants a beautiful wedding, because apparently that's bad. Charlie can't cook. He doesn't know how to buy a grocery. I want to just go to a town and start just eating people. You guys are saying I have to like wait in an alleyway and get this one guy and pretend that he broke his neck.
Oh, the tender sweetness of a seasick crocodile. Greetings and salutations, beautiful humans! I am back on my ridiculosity. Let's do this. This video specifically is going to be about how I would adapt the Twilight books into a TV series. It's not going to be animated. A lot of the things that I have problems with in Twilight are going to be kind of made apparent based on how I describe the show. I conscientiously enjoy Twilight. I feel like that's a lot of the Twilight fandom right now. There's probably still some people out there who are like, Stephenie Meyer can do no wrong, but I have not encountered them to my knowledge. Like, I'm pretty sure people who love Twilight right now are aware of the problems of Twilight. Hi, it's me, the person editing together this compilation. Boy, was I wrong about that. So I posted that first Twilight video 3 years ago, and here is a Reddit post from 4 years ago. I don't want to be mean because this person is expressing themselves as though they genuinely want to understand. The reasoning does feel a little bit silly to me. No, you don't understand. The white characters call the brown characters mongrels and beasts because in the story that I decided to write, the brown characters literally turn into beasts. There's no need to interrogate any of these choices because they're coherent with the internal logic of the story. Again, not trying to be mean, but you will never, ever, ever be able to identify racism or any other ism in the content you consume if you can't look at the story elements as choices made by a person. Stephenie Meyer got to decide what vampires look like and what werewolves look like in her book. If she didn't want that divide to be racial in nature, she had the choice to make it a non-racial divide. It could have been vampires of many races and werewolves of many races having a purely fantasy disagreement. She said that vampires are either white or become white in the change. She said that the only remaining werewolves are these Native American shapeshifters. Those were the choices that she made before describing her Native American characters in bestial terms. Whether she meant to do it or not has no bearing on the effect created by the book she wrote, published, and sold. This isn't about getting to vindictively write the word racist on Stephenie Meyer's forehead. I don't know Stephenie Meyer personally. I have no interest in hunting her or punishing her. The point is being able to evaluate when and how a work of fiction is perpetuating harmful ideas and to discuss it when they do. You cannot allow your the curtains were bluing to keep your capacity for complex thought in a chokehold like this. So just to get this out of the way before I get to the rest of the video, for those of you who have not yet had this laid out for them, the Twilight series has a racism problem, it has a sexism problem, the main relationship is pretty abusive. Again, there are in-universe justifications for his behavior, and most, if not all of it, is pretty genre-typical, but saying it's not abusive behavior is dishonest. It's genre-typical abusive behavior. Interview with the Vampire is also genre-typical abusive behavior. Most of the mockery and ridicule that Twilight received was because people like making fun of things women like. Most of the actual criticism Twilight received was valid. So yeah, spoiler alert, I do enjoy Twilight. Also spoiler alert for Twilight, if you're one of the rare people who don't know the various plot twists, do you understand how fun it is to tell people things about Twilight that don't know things about Twilight? People lose their minds. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to have a wiki open, like, if you want to keep with the plot, da-da-da. Da-da-da. So a few structural things before I get into it. I'm assuming hour-long episodes, and I'm assuming they're released on a weekly basis. You've waited all week for this, and now we're back. A few conceptual things to make you aware of. First of all, the vampires are still going to sparkle. It wasn't that bad, guys. The sparkling's fine. However, one thing we are getting rid of is the vampires are white, and vampire venom gets rid of your melanin, so even if you turn someone who was black or a person of color, they become pale. We're getting rid of that. The story also constantly emphasizes that being a vampire makes you beautiful and gets rid of flaws, so the implications there are really, really gross. Getting rid of that. Vampirism does not get rid of melanin. The dark-skinned vampires are still dark-skinned. It's fine. I feel like this is one of the points where people who didn't read the books, even people who watched the movies but didn't read the books, are now going, wait, did she say that? Yeah, she said that. She pretty much said, you could tell that this character was once a person of color, but now she looks like a China doll. And it's just like, okay, that's very gross, Steph. Of course, doing this sacrifices the idea idea that vampires are immediately visually distinguishable from humans from a distance. There's still the visual dissimilarities that were in the books, like I'm keeping the fact that the animal-eating vampires have yellow eyes and the people-eating vampires have red eyes, and when either of them are hungry, their eyes turn black. I'm keeping that. We're gonna get into the noticeable differences later on in the video, so just keep a pin in that. We're gonna dig into those vampire phenotypes, I promise. Okay, conceptual thing, the werewolves are gonna be werewolves. And if you haven't read the books, that doesn't sound like a change, but here's the thing. For the first 3 Twilight books, and most of the 4th one, they just called the werewolves werewolves. And then randomly, in the 4th book, out of nowhere, we suddenly have one of the vampires go, "Oh, brother, the werewolves aren't really werewolves, they're just people who transform into wolves. Real werewolves are from Europe, and they died off because we hunted them to near extinction or extinction." But like, why? So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna call the werewolves werewolves. The werewolves who are werewolves are distinct from the Quileute tribe. Why? Because the Quileute tribe is a real tribe that has its own beliefs and spirituality, and we're not gonna sit here and be like, we've made up some backstory for this tribe, and now they're werewolves. We're getting rid of the weird creepy stuff that they had in there. So like, you know how wolves can imprint, and you know how wolves can imprint on kids? And you know how their whole thing is like, oh, we're not gonna be romantic with a little baby until she's an adult, at which point it is open season. Yeah, we're not doing any of that crap. Here's how it's gonna be. Imprinting is romantic when they're peers. When they are not peers, it is completely platonic and only protective. So it's not like, I've imprinted on this baby, so I'm gonna marry her one day. It's gonna be, I've imprinted on this baby, so I'm going to protect her. If she finds a significant other, I'm going to protect both of them, etc. It's completely platonic when they have an age gap. Also, I'm gonna take away the thing where it's like, oh yeah, imprinting is a completely reproductive thing. Or I'm not gonna take away that concept. I'm gonna have someone say, oh yeah, we think that people imprint because it'll enable you to have a next generation of wolves, like it's a genetic thing. We're gonna have that be mentioned, but it's going to be proven wrong because eventually someone who is like homosexual is going to imprint on someone of the same gender. So it's like, oh, so it's not a reproductive thing. We're living a soulmate AU, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Leave your note in the comments on how you would approach the imprinting thing, but I think my way is pretty good. Oh, also, we're also getting rid of the fact that Sam scarred Emily. Like, we're not gonna have it be like, he was in a bad mood one day and he accidentally turned into a wolf and scratched her face and now she's scarred forever. We're taking that out. We don't need domestic violence to be a part of this. We're not even gonna say that Emily doesn't have scars. We're just gonna say that Emily has had scars for years because she was in an accident as a child or something like that. If we wanted to go into like the Sam attacked Emily, let's look at the moral ramifications of that. Let's really like dig into that. We could, but I don't want to, and clearly the books didn't want to, and the movies didn't want to. They still had it in there, like they were still like, yeah, he scarred Emily, but it's fine, we're moving on. Either don't have him scar Emily, or let's actually deal with it. But I don't want to deal with it, so he didn't scar Emily. She just has scars, and he's in love with Emily, and it's fine. This series is going to have 3 main characters, and it's going to be 1 from each species. For a brief period of time, I was like, oh man, I know that Bella's going to be the human, and I know that Leah's going to be the werewolf. Spoiler, Leah's going to be the werewolf who's the main character. But what vampire could I use? What vampire could be a straight man persona against all the other vampires with their unique personalities? The answer is Rosalie. I don't know why I didn't immediately know it was Rosalie, but yeah, so it's going to be 3 main characters, Bella, Rosalie, Leah. They all have their unique conflicts and their unique victories, and it's gonna be great. How are we going to do the perspective thing with the 3 main characters? As soon as I thought of having 3 main characters, my thought was like, okay, episode 1 is gonna be just called Bella, episode 2 is gonna be called Rosalie, episode 3 is gonna be called Leah, and we're gonna have different episode titles after that. For those first 3 episodes, it's gonna be just from each person's perspective, so we get a long period of time just looking from their perspective. I decided to move away from that idea. It seems weird if the first episode is like Bella ruminating, just like, whoa, what's going on with the Cullens? What's the Cullens deal? I don't understand. What's the mystery here? And then episode 2, it's just Rosalie being like, yeah, we're vampires. Here's my perspective of us being vampires. We are vampires. Like, it seems like it would be a weird tonal shift from mystery to like, yeah, we're vampires. Here you go. So I don't want to do that. I feel like the movie already served up the mysterious atmosphere anyway, so we can kind of just go into this assuming that the audience knows that the Cullens are vampires because it's Twilight. There are ways around it depending on how you pace it, but here's how I'm picturing it. Strap in, guys, because I'm about to give you a beat by beat thing of how episode 1 would look in my mind. Opening scene. You have turned on the TV or streaming service, you've pulled up Twilight episode 1. Opening scene is the Cullens hunting as a family. So right off the bat, we know that they're vampires. We've got the entire Cullen family together hunting animals in the woods of Forks, Washington. This way we get to see how they interact with each other when they're alone, and we're gonna get some establishing character moments right off the bat, just like one after the other. We're gonna have Edward about to attack some deer or mountain lion or whatever animal he feels like eating. Maybe a bear. Emmett likes bears, and what's gonna happen is Emmett's gonna steal the prey from him. Emmett's gonna just jump in there and take it. Emmett's all goofy and lighthearted about it, like he's just like, yoink, got your thing. But Edward like gets really cranky and he's just like, Emmett, that was mine. Emmett tries joking around about it with him because he feels like they're having fun, but Edward's kind of sniping back, and Emmett's like, wait, are you actually mad? And here we're establishing that Emmett is a himbo who means no harm, and Edward is kind of cranky. This way we get to see what the family means when they say that Bella is a good influence on him or has resulted in a change of his personality, because we're gonna see him be cranky and kind of curmudgeon-y when he's with his family at first. He still loves them, obviously. The books maybe kind of leave some doubt as to how the family feels about each other, but in the show there will be no doubt they all love each other. Edward loves his family, he's just real cranky. Edward's been hunting, Emmett has stolen his prey, he's all cranky about it. Emmett's like, whoa dude, are you actually upset? And Jasper's kind of standing by, just kind of watching the confrontation take place, gleefully soaking in the drama because that's how he's gonna be in this series. But he's not saying anything, he's just sitting there quietly like Edward turns to Jasper in the middle of arguing with Emmett, and he's like, I heard that, indicating that Edward has mind-reading powers, and Jasper has just thought something unflattering. And maybe Emmett asks Jasper to back him up on this because Edward's being unreasonable, and Jasper's just like, nah, I'm good, because Jasper sucks. He's not taking sides, he just enjoys the conflict, he enjoys sipping his tea. Edward is going to accuse Emmett of having no self-control, bit of a character thing here, and kind of allude to Emmett having had accidents with, like, eating humans in the past. And he's not saying it to hurt Emmett's feelings, but it does hurt Emmett's feelings. I'm gonna have them actually give a crap that they've murdered. So Emmett's like sad about having killed people, and then Rosalie pops up into frame, and there's gonna be some gravity to that. We're gonna really emphasize cinematically that it's significant that Rosalie's here now for the first time. It's like, whoa, Rosalie, to indicate that she's a main character. She's actively been eating a deer, and she looks up like, hey, will you lay off Emmett, please, Edward? You jerk, probably in a harsher tone of voice than what I'm using right now. Edward will be visibly guilty for hurting Emmett's feelings, and because they're actually gonna talk like teenagers in this and not like do the weird pseudo-intellectual thing that they do in the books, it's going to come across as, oh, they're teen siblings who are fighting, and not these adults hate each other. And then Esme, the mom, speeds over, and she's got blood on her face from having already eaten, but she still sounds like gentle and maternal as she says like, kids, stop fighting. Why don't you be nice and peaceful like Jasper? Something like that, to that effect. And Jasper's gonna look real smug like, hey, yeah guys, why don't you be like me? He's not gonna say that out loud, smug and annoying about it. We're really establishing early on that Jasper is just the worst, and it's gonna be a fun thing though. It's gonna be fun to just sit there like, ugh, this guy. He's quiet, but he sucks. Now that the drama has died down and there's nothing to spectate, he's gonna just like casually take down a mountain lion really easily, and then he's gonna bring it to Alice, who is just casually waiting for him to bring it over, like she's just hanging out by herself, staring at nothing, dressed really nice. Jasper's gonna bring the mountain lion to her, and she's gonna be like, oh, thank you, and be all cheerful and cute about it. She drinks from the mountain lion very like tidily and neatly. No, she doesn't get any of it on her clothes, and like barely any of it on her face, like just on her lips mostly. Like here we establish, first of all, that Jasper's a really good fighter, really efficient at just like taking stuff down with ease, and second of all, that Alice is very tidy and well-dressed and neat and cheerful. She's meticulous about her appearance, and Jasper and Alice are an item. We've kind of also established that Emmett and Rosalie are an item based on the way she defended him and like his response to her defending him. Now I'm gonna get into what the Cullens are gonna look like, because some of them I've casted. First of all, we're gonna make a change in that Carlisle and Esme aren't going to be ridiculously young. In the books, it's like, oh yeah, Carlisle's 23 and Esme's 26. That's when they were changed, so that's how they look physically forever, but when we move to new towns, we still lie that they're getting older, and we've been here for years now, and it's very clear that he's not getting older, so we gotta move again. We're not gonna have that be a thing at all. If they're 23 and 26 and raising teenagers, that's a huge deal. First of all, that doesn't look like parents, and it would be ludicrous if they tried to lie like, oh yes, I'm now 30. Like, no, you're a baby, you're a little child man. So appearance-wise, I'm picturing Nabia Bay, or I don't know how you pronounce that. It's Nabia B. My character development is learning to look up the pronunciations of people's names before making a video about them. As Esme. Nothing in her backstory is really affected or put in a new light by her being brown, to my knowledge. Like, it seems like everything that happened to her in the past could have happened just as much if she was a brown lady. The fact that she's married to Carlisle Carlisle is a little different now because Carlisle isn't gonna be black, but that just kind of further explains why they were ostracized in the past, like why they have a history of ostracization. Yeah, that was right, what I just did. The Cullens cover story in the books is that Rosalie and Jasper were adopted through Esme by being related to her, and Emmett, Edward, and Alice were adopted through Carlisle by being related to him. This is of course a lie, none of them are actually biologically related to each other, but the fact that Rosalie and Jasper are both blonde kind of feeds the lie, so it's like, oh yeah, I believe that they're twins. For this, they don't actually have to look alike, but I'm going to have Rosalie and Jasper both be black. First of all, to kind of support the Cullens lie that they're related to Esme, and second of all, because I want to, and third of all, because making Jasper black fixes everything about his character. Or at least not everything, but it fixes the worst thing about his character, which is that he was canonically a Confederate soldier and no one in canon cares. It is stated canonically that he joined the army before he was even legally old enough to join the army. He lied his way in using his powers of persuasion. He really wanted to join that Confederate army. You know what's one easy way to have almost all of that be canon without having to deal with the is Jasper maybe racist thing? Just make Jasper black. He joined before he was old enough to because he was forced to. He's a black person who was forced to join the Confederate Army, and we can really dig into that well. There's a lot we can do with that. If you're making it that he wasn't a terrible person, then why did you also emphasize that he's kind of the worst? Well, he's still gonna have a personality, and he's also still gonna be like hawkish and manipulative about using his emotion powers, like his mood control powers, as he is in canon, not as much so as in the books. He's not going to be as sadistic as he is in the books. Like, he's still going to be like a real weirdo, but he's also not going to be a racist one. What we're going to say for the show is that like part of his thing is like he was forced to fight for a cause that did not care about him or that actively hated him. So as a result, he's become very self-indulging and self-serving. So it's just like, I'm not going to put myself in that kind of position again. He loves his family, so self-serving is also serving them most of the time. It benefits him to fight for his family because he loves his family. And we're going to see his softer side with Alice, but there is going to be a fair amount of like, this guy is just like, he sucks, he's the worst. The imaginary fandom for this imaginary show are gonna really love Jasper. I don't know who would play Jasper. My only like real thought is maybe Najee Jeter, but like leave casting ideas in the comments if you have any of those. At first I was picturing Zendaya as Rosalie because a weird part of my mind was thinking, oh, we can still make her blonde even if she's black. We can have her be light skinned and then she can still be blonde. But then my brain went, why? Why though? So she's Coco Jones now. She's either gonna be Coco Jones or Sierra McLean. I'm picturing Ava Noblezada as Alice, and I'm very attached to the idea. I love imagining that, and I will not hear a single bad word about it. It brings me inordinate joy, and no one is allowed to say that Ava Noblezada should not be Alice Cullen. I'm kidding, you can say what you want. I don't know who I would cast as Edward, Emmett, or Carlisle, although I'm tempted to cast Jamie Campbell Bower as Carlisle just because I think that Jamie Campbell Bower is pretty and I like him. I know that he played Caius in the movies. I'm sure the imaginary fandom for this imaginary show would have a lot of jokes about the fact that Caius is Carlisle now. Also, I almost want to cast Regé-Jean Page, despite what I said earlier about Esme and Carlisle being different races. Hi, as I'm editing this, I realized I should clarify that the reason I was thinking we should keep Carlisle white for the show is because Carlisle in canon became a doctor centuries ago in England and in America, and he's been able to go through life largely unquestioned, so it seems like that would be complicated if you make him a person of color. So that's my reasoning for that. You can disagree. But Regé-Jean Page is also really pretty, so that's a maybe. But I'm thinking still like Jamie Campbell Bower. So yeah, we start the episode with the scene of the vampires hunting. I want to say that we end the scene with Alice kind of gazing out into space, and there's a plane there, and that's the plane where Bella is landing, because it kind of informs the viewer early on that Alice has precognition. But we can't really do that, because if Alice knows already that Bella is significant, then that begs the question, why doesn't Edward know already that Bella is significant? And I don't want Edward to be going into it knowing that Bella is his soulmate, because that takes a lot of the fun out of it. Instead, we're gonna have Rosalie kind of complaining, ugh, let's get out of here, it's so noisy. Then we're gonna kind of pan over to an airplane silently in the distance, indicating that vampires have sensitive hearing. After we've panned over to the silent airplane, we're gonna hard cut to the airplane close-up being loud, and Bella getting off the airplane. Cutting right from Rosalie to Bella is another way of indicating to the viewer that Rosalie is going to also be a main character along with Bella. By the by, I haven't decided who I would cast for Bella. My immediate thought was either Sophia Carson or Sydney Park, but I have no strong feelings about who plays Bella, so I guess, you know, comments. Bella's section is gonna be basically the same as it is in the movie with some tweaks. We're not gonna see Billy and Jacob when she gets the truck like we did in the movie. The book didn't do that, and we're gonna kind of go the book way. Like in the movie, we're gonna have Bella be way more appreciative of the truck than she was in the book. Her interactions with her dad, with Charlie, are going to be friendly but stilted. She's trying to be a good sport about the move. What I'm trying to do with this whole thing is to present things the way Stephenie Meyer pretended they were presented. A lot of times in the book, the characters comment on how selfless Bella is and how she does everything for other people and never thinks about herself or something like that, and she should really advocate for herself more. Whereas what we actually see happen is that she is vocally disagreeable and plaintive to the other human characters a lot of the time. It's just the supernatural characters who she's more like lenient with. Not to mention internally judgmental. She spends a lot of time judging the other human characters in the book. We're gonna present Bella the way the books acted like she was, and then we're gonna actually like deal with the fallout of that. She's not exactly gonna start conversations with Charlie, and she's gonna be content to not talk to him, but when he starts the conversation, she's really doing her best. We're gonna see that she's trying here. The main issue between Bella and Charlie is going to be the fact that she's used to being the one who takes care of herself, and he's going into it like, oh, I'm the parent, I'm supposed to take care of you, obviously. She's used to being the one to cook and get groceries and stuff, and Charlie has been doing this for himself for years, so we're not gonna do the thing the books do, where it's like, Charlie can't cook, he doesn't know how to buy groceries. Yes, we're making Charlie self-sufficient. He's been living alone for years. Why wouldn't he know how to take care of himself? It makes more narrative sense to contrast him with Renee, Bella's mom. Renee kind of let Bella fend for herself, but Charlie's really trying to take on an active parenting role. Why would we have Bella basically have to take care of her mom and then move to Forks where she basically has to take care of her dad? That's silly. She's gonna feel the need to take those roles on herself, and he's gonna kind of be like, hey, kid, it's okay to let me do this stuff. Like, even if Charlie is ready to cook a meal, she's like, no, I'm gonna do it. Or even if Charlie has already bought groceries, she's gonna go to the store and buy different groceries. Oh, I got a better deal on mayonnaise, so I bought an entire other jar of mayonnaise, and it's like, we don't need that much mayonnaise, Bella. Charlie takes Bella to school, and the people there are very friendly. Like, hey, newcomer, what's up? How you doing? Some of them are still going to have crushes on her. It's not unrealistic that you'd be like, oh, a new person. Hot. We're still gonna have the human friends, Jessica, Mike, Angela, Eric. Like in the movie, we'll see her in gym class, and we're gonna see her being bad at sports, but Rosalie is also in the gymnasium. Rosalie is a senior and Bella's a junior, so what I'm picturing is that like Rosalie is one of those student assistants to the gym class. Do other schools have that? Because my high school had a thing where it's like the upperclassmen would sometimes be gym assistants, and they'd wear a different color gym shirt from everyone else. So Rosalie's one of those. She has a whistle, she has a different color gym shirt, and she's just kind of sitting in the bleachers, reading a magazine, blatantly not helping with the class. She's not paying attention, but when a ball flies towards her head from like the basketball court or whatever, she easily dodges it without looking up. Bella kind of stares at her for a while, intrigued for some reason, and we're gonna have like a light audio cue going on there. The background sounds of the gym will kind of fade out and get muffled, but you'll hear this thing. Maybe it's Bella's heartbeat, maybe a little musical leitmotif, or maybe it's some like little bells or something. Basically, we're gonna have a little audio cue to indicate that Bella is kind of fascinated. She's not literally entranced or hypnotized, but she's like fascinated with the vampire. We're establishing the vampires have something viscerally compelling about them, while also kind of, you know, peppering in some gay stuff for the Twilight fans who discovered they like girls after reading the series when they were 9. One of Bella's human friends is gonna kind of break Bella's concentration or break her out of the staring, just like, hey Bella, what's up? And then the human friend's going to look over, follow Bella's gaze, and see that she was staring at Rosalie. The human friend's gonna kind of go, oh, I know, right? The rest of us are used to it by now. That's why everyone isn't staring at Rosalie and it's just Bella. Like, the rest of them have gone through that phase and it's over now. So they're used to the fact that the vampires are like weirdly compelling, but they've kind of, you know, been desensitized to it. We're still gonna have the cafeteria scene, but we're not gonna have them walk in like they did in the movie, because I want the movie to still have its unique stuff. So they're gonna already be at the table. They're already gonna be sitting around the table, their cafeteria table together, and Belle's gonna look across the cafeteria and be like, who's that? And Jessica's gonna explain every character in detail. The Cullens. Edward's still gonna stare at Bella kind of intensely from across the cafeteria because he can't read her mind and it's frustrating. And we're gonna briefly cut to the Cullen table to have Rosalie just be kind of like, hey, why are you staring at the new girl? That's weird. Edward's just like, I can't hear her. Alice is gonna check the future, establishing that she can do that, and she's gonna see Edward just like eat Bella, kill the whole class. She's gonna see that thing that could have happened if he hadn't kept control of himself. And Edward's gonna see that in her mind. Like, he's gonna see her check the future. He's gonna be horrified by it. And Alice tells him, hold your breath in biology class, because if he holds his breath, then he won't smell Bella, so he won't need to murder everyone. Didn't make sense that this didn't happen in canon, so this is kind of me trying to fix the fact that Alice should have seen more stuff than she did. Since Edward was just ragging on Emmett earlier this episode, which would be like that morning for the characters, since Edward was just getting on Emmett about his lack of self-control, Rosalie's gonna kind of take the opportunity to needle him like, oh, was someone gonna have an accident of their own? Edward is still horrified from having seen himself that way in Alice's vision. He's gonna get immediately defensive, like, she's probably just a singer. That's why it happened. It's not gonna happen now that I know about it. Now I'm ready, I'm prepared. It's not gonna happen. Side note, in the background of this whole interaction, Emmett is like exaggeratedly pretending to eat an apple or to eat his food, just in a kind of like, oh, look how human I am kind of way. We're never gonna have the camera focus on it, and we're never gonna have a character who's in the foreground of a shot interact with it. Like, it's never gonna be focused on, but it's gonna be a fun background thing. Then we're back to Bella's POV, and that's the biology class. She goes to bio. The only free seat is next to Edward, and he's seeming pretty normal and charming since he had forewarning, so he's holding his breath, and like he has enough air to say like, hello, I'm Edward Cullen, how's it going? You must be new. Being very charming and smooth. We're gonna have some kind of trilling audio effect to indicate that vampire voices sound more beautiful to humans than they do to each other. We're not gonna hear it when they're talking to each other. When they're talking to each other, they sound normal. But when Edward talks to Bella, there's gonna be like a little, like a slight, not really warping, concurrent with his voice. There's going to be a faint leitmotif or bell or something like that. And Bella just kind of responds. They talk, it's smooth, it's fine. But then Bella asks, what unit are we on? And at this point, Edward is out of air, so he has to inhale. And when he inhales, he smells Bella's scent, and that's when he kind of goes like he was in canon, where he's just like, and like ducking away, covering his mouth and nose as if she smells horrible. He doesn't speak, he just points to the board which says cell division or cellular mitosis to answer her question. So yeah, he holds his breath for the entire rest of class, and he feels really bad about himself. Man, maybe my control isn't as good as I thought. I thought that I could handle it, but I can't. Pride being his downfall, like, oh, I had forewarning. I chose to breathe because I thought I could handle it. Turns out that I can't. I gotta go. So we're actually building on a personal flaw of Edward. Another departure from canon that I've already done is the fact that the Cullens have hunted recently when Bella shows up, because in the books, Edward's eyes were black when he met Bella, and that was part of the problem, is that he was especially hungry when he smelled her. But here it's gonna be, no, he wasn't that hungry. She just smells really good. That's a change I'm comfortable with making, although it does harm the fact that Bella's gonna observe that his eyes have changed color, but she can observe that later, it's fine. We follow Bella for a bit, give her some at-home time with Charlie to build up their conflict that I already talked about. The next day at school, Edward isn't there, and that's weird. Day after that, Edward isn't there, and that's still weird. Third day, he isn't there. Bella goes to Rosalie in gym class. Well, first, she kind of stares at Rosalie again, and then like her concentration is broken. Instead of by a friend, this time it's by someone on one of the basketball courts, skins his knee, and he's bleeding. Rosalie, who has not been paying attention to anything else, suddenly kind of just like, not urgently, but she kind of gets up and leaves the room, and Bella follows her. She follows her into the bathroom, and Rosalie is just kind of grooming in the mirror, first of all because vampires can't pee, and second of all because Rosalie is definitely someone who goes to the bathroom just to kind of groom in the mirror. Bella goes, hey, sorry to pry, but is Edward okay? He's in my biology class. And then she kind of trails off because she's suddenly just transfixed by Rosalie's beauty. And she's done this with Edward before too. It's not just a Rosalie thing, but she is like fascinated by Rosalie's beauty. She stares at Rosalie, and Rosalie looks back with startling yellow eyes. Golden. Now we're back to the vampire phenotypes thing, because one thing that I want to be the case is that while vampires only sparkle in direct sunlight, and like I said, we're keeping the sparkling, I want to kind of build on the diamond thing. Maybe even if they're not in direct sunlight, if it's just like artificial light, or if the light is especially bright that isn't sunlight, there's still a visual quality that is mesmerizing. Vampires have skin like diamonds. I want, no matter how light-skinned or dark-skinned the vampire is, I want their skin to like kind of swim with color in a mesmerizing way that isn't blatantly supernatural enough to draw shock or notice. So just kind of like a subtle quality about their skin. You don't see it if you're from a distance, but they're under like the harsh bathroom light and standing right next to Rosalie, it's kind of just like, whoa. That's cool. Bella stammers for a few seconds noticing this, but then she kind of gets her bearings again, and she's just like, sorry, I mean, like, Edward's my lab partner. I was wondering if he's okay. He hasn't been in class for a few days. Rosalie's just like, lucky you. We get that audio quality about her voice again because it's a vampire talking to a human. Bella goes, huh? What do you mean? Rosalie's like, if I had 3 days away from Edward, I wouldn't complain. Bella asks, is he sick? Rosalie just kind of keeps dodging the question, and it's fine. Now we've switched to Rosalie's POV. She goes back to the Cullen house like, the Swan Girl's asking questions. You, Edward, get your brittle behind to school. You're raising suspicions, and here we're going to introduce the audience to the fact that if vampires are found out as vampires, or if they raise too much suspicion from humans, they'll be killed by the Volturi. We'll also like really hammer in the fact that it's crucial that Edward keep his control around Bella, or else he will kill her, and he won't mean to, it'll just kind of happen. Then we'll lighten the mood by hard cutting to Edward in biology class the next day. He's trying to gloss over everything with Bella, and Bella's just not having it, like, no, that was still weird. You were holding your nose, and you were acting weird, and then you were gone for days. What's up? I'm tempted to say that I want Edward to be as bad a liar as he is in canon, because that's really funny. You've been alive for 100 years, man. How are you like this? He could easily just be like, oh yeah, I had a nosebleed and then I was sick, so that's what happened. But I kind of wanted to be badly dodging the question, and Bella's just be like, No. We follow the actual plot of Twilight for a bit, them kind of bantering and Edward trying to learn about Bella, Bella trying to learn about Edward. Both of them are being weirdly obstructive about the whole thing. One day it snows. At first when I was writing this, I thought that the Cullens had a snowball fight on that day in the book, but now I've realized that I was thinking of two different incidents, one of which being Bella's friends had a snowball fight, and the other of which being Emmett shook snow out of his hair onto the others at the cafeteria table. So I was conflating those two and thinking that the Cullens had a snowball fight that day. In my show, the Cullens had a snowball fight that day. It's the end of the school day on the day that it has snowed, and the Cullens are in the parking lot, they're throwing snowballs at each other, and there's some other students throwing snowballs at each other too, far away, but the Cullens are doing it amongst themselves. Emmett is throwing snowballs, but then he notices that Rosalie is kind of sulking alone, staring off at the humans, and Emmett kind of goes, "Hey babe, what's wrong?" Rosalie's gonna say something like, "I miss having all that potential." And it's a serious line in universe, but like in the imaginary fandom of this imaginary show, that's gonna be a gif that's used for a lot of things, just like, "Oh, I miss having that much potential." It's gonna be a meme. Rosalie goes, "Pretending to be like them," and then trails off. We've introduced now that Rosalie's conflict is that she doesn't like being a vampire and she's trying to find meaning in her immortal life. That's gonna be a major thread for her. Then Rosalie and Bella are gonna make eye contact to establish, first of all, once again, the connection between the main characters, and second of all, that Bella knows that the Cullens are across the parking lot, because then Tyler's van comes skidding on the ice, and it almost crushes Bella, but then Edward runs across the parking lot vampire speed and saves Bella from the van. Before this happens, Alice is gonna gasp because she sees it like a second before it happens, and Jasper just goes like, "What is it? What's wrong?" But then the van comes skidding, Edward saves Bella, they make eye contact. That's the final shot of the episode. The siblings stare on in horror, Edward and Bella stare at each other, like, "Whoa, what was that?" Cut to black, credits. That's the end of the first episode, and you may notice that I haven't mentioned Leah yet, and that's because her plot isn't really connected to Bella's and Rosalie's plot, but she will be there. She's just kind of doing her own thing right now. It's only gonna cut to her about 3 times in the first episode, and it's mostly going to establish who she is, who her family is, who her friends are, if her friends are a major part of this, and the fact that she and Sam are in a loving relationship. We're really gonna emphasize how loving and wholesome and pure their relationship is, because I wanna hurt the audience. She's engaged to Sam Yulee, but he's being a little mysterious all of a sudden. He's being different. What's up with Sam? At this point, Sam has become a wolf, but right now he's the only one, and him and Leah are still together. This might not be completely compliant with the actual timeline of the books, but that's what I'm going with. I'm still doing it like this. At some point, Leah will casually mention that her cousin Emily is planning on visiting soon, and if you've read the books, that's you going, "Oh no, Leah." But if you haven't read the books or seen the movies, then you're just thinking, "Oh, she's casually mentioning that," and that's just like her saying a girlfriendy thing, so that we can see that Sam isn't paying attention. Like, we can see Sam going, "Huh? Yeah? Okay." Like, you think that's the point, is that he's not paying attention, but really the point is that Emily's coming, and like that's foreshadowing for Emily showing up to meet the fiance of her best friend. The first Leah scene establishes Leah and her family. Second Leah scene establishes that Sam is being mysterious. Third Leah scene, though, is really gonna show that Leah and Sam have a beautiful, sweet relationship. The last Leah scene will be right before the snow scene. We're gonna see like Leah and Sam together, and then Sam's gonna be like, "Okay, I gotta go outside for a minute." And then he leaves, he goes outside, and then he transforms into a wolf, and the audience goes, "Whoa!" Then it cuts to the snow day. So that's the first episode. I could give you a play-by-play of the other episodes, but like that would make this video unbearably long. Basically, for the rest of the first season, Bella's point of view follows roughly the plot of Twilight, with little changes for consistency and character powers making sense, and we're still gonna have Jasper initially want to deal with the Bella situation though. Like, we're still gonna have Jasper be like, "Hey, we can't have this human knowing about us," because I kind of love that. So we are still gonna have Jasper casually be like, "I think we maybe have to kill her," and Alice is still gonna be the one like, "No, she's gonna be my friend in the future, so we can't kill her." Or maybe actually we're gonna have Alice just say, "No, we can't kill her because she's a human and she deserves to live," instead of making it a selfish thing. I've grown desensitized to like the weird selfishness of the Cullens. From Rosalie's point of view, we're gonna deal with her contemplation of what she's gonna do with the rest of her eternal life and her resentment for being a vampire. For this season, we're gonna keep it fairly light though. Like, Emmett's gonna suggest maybe she start babysitting, a 1-episode story arc of Rosalie taking up babysitting, and we see her struggle with it, but she also enjoys it because she loves kids. From Leah's point of view, we're gonna deal with the mystery of what's going on with Sam, and we're gonna deal with Sam imprinting on Emily. Towards the end of the season, Emily's gonna make her visit. Sam's gonna see her, and he's gonna fall immediately in love with her, and it's gonna be like, "I'm sorry, Leah, I kind of just don't feel anything for you anymore. We kind of have to call off the engagement." Leah's gonna be devastated. That's not gonna be her state at the very end of the season, though. I don't want the ending shots to be like, "Oh yeah, Bella's at prom with Edward, and Rosalie's doing fine with whatever she's doing at prom with Emmett, and Leah is heartbroken because her fiance fiance has dropped her. So I want to end on a positive note for Leah. Maybe she's gotten a scholarship to the college she wants. Something good happens in her life to end off the season, because I don't want her to end off at a terribly low note. Although she will be really sad about Sam, and that degree of angst is really gonna pay off next season when she's taking no crabs, and we're all gonna be really happy for her, the imaginary fandom of this imaginary show. We're really gonna dig into her sadness, because I feel like Stephenie Meyer was pretty dismissive of it, where it's just like, yeah, Leah has suffered way too much, and we're gonna just pile more onto her, and we're never going to satisfactorily address it. And it's just like, her? Why? Season 2 is a little tougher because we gotta think of something for Leah to be doing in between the beginning of the season and finding out that she's a werewolf. I'm thinking that's mostly gonna be mystery stuff, like what's going on with Sam and the gang that he seems to be forming. About 3/4 of the way through the season, she's going to phase into a wolf for the first time, and her dad's gonna die of a heart attack seeing it. I'm thinking before Leah turns, she will be 1, working towards some personal goal, maybe school related, maybe whatever career she wants to have. 2, trying to figure out why Sam seems like he's forming a gang and what's going on with that. And 3, trying to protect Seth from that gang. That's really the only reason she cares about the gang, is because the gang seems to be interested in Seth. Sam and the pack think, oh yeah, Seth is a Clearwater male. He's probably going to turn into a wolf sometime soon. So they're keeping an eye on Seth. Leah sees that they're scoping out her brother, and she's just like, hey, stop. Definitely don't. Why is my ex-fiance, who just dropped me so indifferently, suddenly scoping out my brother for his weird gang? Bella's actions in New Moon aren't exactly action-packed. Her plot is going to not be as emphasized as Leah's plot in season 2. Rosalie doesn't really have many canonical actions in New Moon at all, except that she tells Edward that Alice saw Bella jump off a cliff. We're gonna invent some stuff for Rosalie to do, but I don't know what they are right now. Leah is going to cross paths with Bella because Harry, her dad, and Bella's dad's friend, is going to send her over to the Swan house like, hey, bring this stuff over to Charlie and Bella. And Leah's gonna be like, okay, and she's gonna cross paths with Bella. And at this point, Bella is friends with Jacob, and Jacob has withdrawn from Bella because he's phased into a wolf and he's with Sam now. Bella's in that period of time where she's like, what happened to Jacob? Why is he gone? So Bella's gonna ask Leah, hey, you're from La Push Reservation. Do you know what's going on with Jacob? Like, is he sick or something? What's going on? Why is he missing? Is it Sam? Jacob mentioned Sam. Is Sam the reason why he's not picking up my calls? And now Leah's interest is piqued, and she's like, what, you think Sam got to him? So she's gonna investigate Jacob next. When Leah does eventually phase into a wolf, her dad will be the only one to see it, and there will be some in-story reason that none of the other wolves are in their wolf form at the time, so no one's gonna hear her thoughts. She has to turn back into a human. She has to like figure out how to turn back into a human in order to call the ambulance for her dad, who has had a heart attack. So at that point, she has phased into a wolf, and no one knows that she has phased into a wolf. However, after the fact, they do know that Harry has had a heart attack, and the house looks like it was destroyed by a wolf. So Sam's pack is gonna kind of go up to the clear waters while they're mourning Harry, and they're gonna be like, hey Seth, you gotta come with us. And Leah's just kind of be like, stay away from my brother, don't, like, you stay away from my brother right now. The pack is gonna be dismissive, like, Leah, you don't understand, you don't get it, this is beyond your understanding, we have to take Seth for his own good, or something like that. And Leah's gonna be like, I said, stay away from my brother! And she's gonna turn into a wolf, and then they're gonna be like, whoa, a girl wolf, we didn't know that was a thing. And while I have been kind of ignoring the Bella plotline for a while, it is important to me that you know that Jane and Alec of the Volturi, in my mind, are played by McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard. I'm not married to the idea, but that's how I'm picturing them right now, because McKenna Grace was really good in The Bad Seed 2018, and Finn Wolfhard was really good in It and The Turning. Of course, there remains the problem that, like, if we get young actors, then they're probably gonna grow up in between appearances, and vampires aren't supposed to grow older. That's just kind of a confounding factor, though, for every vampire piece of media, is that the actors get older and the characters don't. Also, the audience will not see Edward after he leaves. Even when it cuts to Rosalie's point of view in the Cullen house, Edward isn't there. He's gone off by himself for a period of time. Maybe he occasionally does go to the Cullen house, but we, the audience, don't see it. First time we see Edward again is going to be when Rosalie inadvertently tells him that Alice has seen Bella jump off a cliff. Of course, Rosalie doesn't tell him this verbally, she's just accidentally thinking about it in his presence. That's when we first see Edward, and that's a huge moment, like, Edward's back! I think we're also gonna have a scene of Alice going, Bella keeps emailing me, it's breaking my heart not to email her back and, like, not respond, because Edward doesn't want us to respond to her. And Rosalie's gonna say something like, okay, either respond to Bella because Edward isn't the boss of you, or delete your email so that you don't torture yourself ignoring Bella. Alice is going to delete her email account right when Bella sends an email saying that Jacob is a werewolf, so they miss out on that information. Season 3 is Eclipse, and in Eclipse, we're changing the weird forced kiss from Jacob. Like, we're not gonna have it be, oh, Jacob just like grabs Bella, kisses her, she punches him in the face, he laughs. We're not gonna have that happen. He kisses Bella and he thinks that it's like a grand display of love or something, and when she punches him and breaks her hand on his face and it is indicated to him that she didn't want him to kiss her, he's gonna be super sorry and like apologetic and not defensive in the slightest, not smug in the slightest. That's all I'm saying about season 3. Season 4 will be Breaking Dawn, and season 4 is the point at which Rosalie and Bella and Leah will really be on the same page. Their motivations are gonna be different than they were in the books, but Rosalie and Bella and Leah are gonna be on the same page in season 4, and that's gonna be really the time when it's like, ooh, the kids are together. Kind of like when Zuko joined Aang in The Last Airbender. It's just gonna be like, whoa, they're united now. I've been content with following their separate plot lines, but now they're all together. Also, we're gonna make Leah the alpha of the separate pack from Sam's instead of Jacob, because the reason that Jacob became the alpha of a separate pack was like, he has the superior genetics, and that's gross. So we're not doing that. We're gonna have it be a Mjolnir situation where it's like, whoever proves themselves worthy can be alpha, and Leah proves herself worthy, so she's the alpha. We still have the pregnancy with the half-vampire kid, and Bella's still gonna name the baby Renesmee. It's not that bad, guys. The name is fine. I don't know why everyone's so mad about the name Renesmee. Like, it's not a normal name, but it's not horrendous. It's like, yeah, Renesmee, it's fine. Whatever, Renesmee. But most people are still gonna call her Nessie. And the Volturi is still gonna come because they're still gonna think she's an immortal child. And they're still gonna have the whole trial thing, but instead of the ending being like, oh, never mind, bye, okay, whatever, it's gonna actually, like, lead into season 5 in some way. Like, it's gonna be like, okay, now we have to study half vampires in a very real way. Maybe they have to take Renesmee for checkups at the Volturi or something like that. The end of season 4 is going to lead into season 5 where we're doing more stuff with the vampires. Like I said in the other video, how many seasons can we get out of it? Can we expand? I'm gonna expand. Fortunately, child actors grow up fast in regular life, so like between seasons, the child actor is gonna get older and it'll seem like it's, oh, Renesmee grows at an accelerated rate. It's only been a week. It hasn't been the year it's been between seasons. The fact that more and more wolves keep phasing as vampires are around them, and the wolves thing is that they want to protect humans, that's gonna lead to maybe a conflict between the wolves and the Volturi in season 5 or 6, I'm thinking. And maybe Leah's gonna put some pressure on Rosalie and Bella, like, hey, we're friends, but you gotta pick a side. Are you gonna stand with these people-eating vampires who are murdering people, or are you gonna stand with the wolves who want to protect people? That can be a thing where it's like, no, we don't wanna have to fight the Volturi, and a lot of our friends eat people. But I'm gonna stop it there, lest I get long-winded or longer-winded. We're in between videos now, and I'd like to take this time for a little tangent. Obviously, I have my gripes with Twilight, but one thing I'll say in its defense, I find it kind of annoying how frequently internet reviewers act willfully obtuse toward what genre it is. Pretty much every guy I've seen review Twilight, except maybe Dominic Noble, makes some comment to the tune of, I wish we were focusing more on the fight. Oh no, the characters are talking again instead of killing each other. And the remark always relies on this assumption that every movie's objective is to be appealing to the demographic that would rather be watching a Terminator movie. These are not action movies that make you sit through a disproportionate amount of romance. These are romance movies that let you sometimes see a vampire's head get torn off. It's kind of the same as the people who were annoying about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes movie having songs in it. Obviously, I'm not the boss of anyone, and everyone's allowed to say what they want about pretty much anything, but by the same token, I'm allowed to have an opinion about the things they say. And I find it kind of lazy to give no consideration to a film's genre or target audience when discussing it. Or if they do pay consideration to the target audience, it's just to express contempt to the target audience for enjoying the film, which is pretty silly. It's an exercise in thought termination, basically. Instead of actually examining the ways in which the film is effective based on the reaction of the fans, it's just the fans are wrong because girls are stupid. We will only continue to have cookie-cutter movies that are afraid to stray from clear established genre conventions if the loudest voices in movie commentary can never be earnest or curious. That said, a lot of the channels I'm referring to in this aside are channels that I do genuinely enjoy a lot. Greetings and salutations, beautiful humans! You guys reacted so well to my previous Twilight video that now I have to make another Twilight video. I was planning to make one video for just how I would write the characters in this imaginary show, but that was gonna take a long time because instead of leaving out some minor characters, I was like, no, I want to be able to characterize Amun and Kebi. It was going to be several hours if I had made that video, so instead I'm gonna chop it up into parts. This part is gonna be just the human characters who are canon and the Cullens. I'm gonna have another section that is the rest of the canon vampire characters, and another video that is the canon werewolf characters and the OCs that I would make up for this show. Because if you've seen my How I Would Write the Tiana series on Disney Plus video, you know that I make up OCs sometimes. The overall theme here in my How I Would Write these characters, and even How I Would Write the series in general, is that one, I'm trying to make what was meant to be made. So if there was a character who was described a certain way but characterized in a way that wasn't that, then I'm gonna like kind of tweak it to make it either them being the way that they are said to be, or canonize that dissonance and see what we can do with that. My other thing is, if what was meant to be made was like morally reprehensible in my eyes, I'm taking it out and fixing it. Making what was meant to be made, fixing what shouldn't have been meant to be made. My ideology going into this is that there is something worth salvaging in every piece of art. Every piece of art is communicating some truth about humanity or some emotional, boy, this is gonna get pretentious, hold on. Every piece of art is contributing something. Sometimes those things are more oblique in being received, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to like take those nuggets of good and arrange them in a nice little pretty way. I'm sure that it sounds very arrogant to say that I'm fixing Twilight, but as I've said in the past, I have gone mad with power now. So that variety of arrogance is more or less par for the course. Also, trigger warning, this is about things that happen either in the books themselves or are mentioned in passing about what has happened to characters in the past, which means this is going to be referencing things like suicide, sexual assault, and domestic violence. So if you are sensitive in those areas, you might maybe want to not watch this. So, without further ado, Bella. Starting on the human characters, we've got Bella Swan. Bella is going to have hangups, as stated in the previous video, around being parented and being cared for. I don't subscribe to the idea that the books don't give Bella characterization. A lot of people like to kind of throw that nugget out there of like, Bella doesn't have character traits, she's just a self-insert, which like she is a self-insert, but she does have traits. The thing that the book is sparse with is what she wants outside of Edward. Her personality is there, her likes and dislikes are pretty much there. It's the having goals outside of Edward that is lacking. This show is gonna dare to ask the question. It's going to bravely deign to ask the question of what Bella Swan wants to do with her life. A canon trait of hers is that she likes books, so we can work with that. My first thought was maybe she wants to be a writer, but I always feel like characters in books or movies who want to be writers seem like self-inserts for the writer who wrote them. Her canon trait is that she likes books. We could go writer with that, but I don't want to, and also if she becomes a writer, that's kind of a problem immortality-wise, because if she becomes a really prolific writer, then it's like, hey, unusually well preserved, isn't she? She can't get famous. She's not allowed to get famous because she's gonna be a vampire later. So, writer, off the table. I'm going to take the fact that she likes books and the fact that she has to want to be something when she grows up because she's in high school and surely a lot of people are asking her, hey, what are you gonna major in college? Where do you want to go to college? What career do you want? Those are things that she has to know about herself very soon as far as she's concerned. So she's definitely given the matter thought. I'm gonna go ahead and say, building on the book thing, that she, at the beginning of the series, wants to be an editor. I'm gonna actually use the what does she want to be when she grows up as a means of character development or communicating her character development, which is a nice little kill two birds with one stone kind of thing. At the beginning, she wants to be an editor, and the reason she wants to be an editor is because she has this belief about herself that she isn't creative, she doesn't think that she has anything of value to say, so she doesn't want to be a writer, and we're gonna have a conversation with Charlie about that.
You like science fiction?
Not really. I mean, it's a good book, it's not really my genre though.
What is your genre?
Upmarket literary fiction, especially with some kind of historical period involved.
I always see you reading. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Huh?
I feel like there's a lot of things I should know about you, but I don't. You're a junior now, you've taken the SATs. What do you want to be?
I guess a book editor?
Book editor?
I like books. I'm good at spotting grammatical errors.
Ever think of being a writer? No? Okay. Okay.
Renee never asked me that. Her initial perspective is, I don't think that I have a story to tell, but I believe that I believe that I have good grammar. I'm not saying that editors are uncreative. I'm just saying that that's what Bella views herself as. As the series progresses and she seeks to take such a passive view to her own life, she starts to move away from the editor idea, and now she thinks she wants to be a literary agent. She wants to take a more active role in the stories being told. She doesn't want to write them, but she does want to help them to go forward as they are. She wants to find the stories that deserve to be told, and she wants to help them to get told. She wants to bring them to the audience they need to be brought to. Put a pin in that idea. Maybe there's an episode where she and Rosalie work on a car together. Like, she wants to talk to Rosalie, and Rosalie's like, hey, while you're here, hold this. And she ends up helping Rosalie with a car, and they have a kind of bonding moment. And after doing that, she's like, oh man, maybe I want to work with my hands. Maybe I want to be a bookbinder. Writing is too low-hanging fruit. She's never going to consider being a writer. A lot of people are going to say, hey, why don't you be a writer? And maybe the imaginary fandom for this imaginary show is going to be like, oh my gosh, we get it. She's gonna be a writer. Stop telegraphing it so hard. But it's like, no, she's not. You think you know where I'm going with this, but you don't, because you're just a viewer. What this is all going to culminate in is that Bella is going to settle, drum roll, on wanting to be a librarian. And I know this feels like an anticlimax, but the fact that that feels like an anticlimax is the point. Bella Swan wants to help pair people with the stories that will change their life. She wants to be active in the providing of books, in the access of books. It's an unglamorous job, and it's not a hugely respected job. She's going to change people's lives in a lot of ways, but people aren't going to remember her. So she can be a vampire, she can be immortal, she can go from library to library doing good deeds. They do such a service and we don't remember them. I remember my first librarian. I'm just saying, for the purposes of the show, it's a good fit. Another major thread for her is that she wants to be left alone. We're not going the book route of like, oh, these welcoming people are so nice to me. There's merit to the fact that she kind of wants to be left alone, and we can express that without making her seem judgmental and rude. That's aided by the fact that we don't have her internal monologue. A lot of people like Bella irrespective of her internal monologue. It's when we know that she's thinking bad things about them that we kind of go, Bella, that's really mean. But yeah, Renee left her alone a lot, so that has kind of become her comfort zone. The whole town being friendly and caring makes her feel uncomfortable. She doesn't think less of them for it, but it makes her uncomfortable. Like, yeah, I understand what you're doing, but I really kind of need to be left alone because I don't feel comfortable with this. However, despite feeling that being alone is her comfort zone and feeling that she wants people to leave her alone, when people do leave her alone, she doesn't like it. We can demonstrate this trait. For the first several scenes in which we see Bella, she's gonna seem very, I'll do it myself, I'm fine, I got this. We're not gonna see her cry. In the books, we see her cry as soon as she gets home. We're not gonna have that scene yet. What we're going to have is when she gets to school, there's going to be a student who says, hey, I can show you to all your classes. That's probably gonna be Eric, because it was Eric in the book. I can show you to your classes. Do you need help? I got you. And she's gonna be like, no, I'm fine. I got this. And he gives her space. He lets her figure it out, and she gets lost. She can't figure out her way to class, and she's going to go hide in a bathroom and cry. That's when we're going to see her cry, is when she's gotten lost in the school. Maybe when she goes to cry in the bathroom, she runs into Jessica, and Jessica's like, hey, what's up? And then Jessica shows her the way to class, and that's how she's gonna befriend Jessica. Or Angela, maybe she walks out of the bathroom and it's Mike. Her feelings on Edward are going to go as follows. First, she's gonna be attracted and fascinated by the hot guy she sees in the distance. Second, she's going to no longer be particularly fascinated once he's no longer in the distance. Hi, it's me again, the one who's editing. A quick note, that may sound like a contradiction that she's no longer fascinated by him, especially since you're about to hear me say that she is still subject to vampire allure as like signified by the sound of their voice, like mentioned in the previous video. But in this case, what I'm saying is that fascination is not attraction. She's attracted to him because of the vampire allure, but she is not fascinated with him in that she doesn't want to pursue anything. She's not like really trying to move forward with him at all. This is gonna be when the first bio class happens and they're talking normally like I mentioned in the first video. Third, she's going to be bewildered and curious by the fact that he acts weird immediately after that. He acts weird. He starts going, I can't smell you because you taste so good. And as a result of that, she's bewildered and curious again. She's like, okay, what was that about? Now I have to know. Then she's invested in the mystery of the hot guy. So Edward isn't exactly going to be an exception to her aversion to attention. He's just going to be a puzzle she wants to solve. Initially. When she discovers that he's a vampire, this dynamic is going to shift. She enjoys being around Edward because he's a hot, edgy vampire, and because he offers her a chance to be alone without being alone. She can kind of sit with him, and it's like being in a bubble, because no one really wants to interact with the Cullens too much, so it's like no one's gonna really bother you once you're hanging out with Edward. So she gravitates towards him just based on that, and based on the fact that she knows he's a vampire, and that's really cool. She can read and zone out, no one's gonna interrupt her, but also she's not literally alone, so she doesn't have to go cry in a bathroom anymore. It starts out shallow for both of them, basically. He wants to learn her because he can't read her mind, and he's very curious. She likes having a hot vampire nearby who keeps friends from bothering her. When she doesn't want to be bothered, she still interacts with her friends when she does feel like it. She's an introvert. Sometimes she just doesn't have the stamina for interaction, and that's okay. He falls in love with her before she falls in love with him. He kind of finds the relationship unethical, not only because of the fact that he wants to drink her, but because he believes that she's just under the influence of his vampire allure. I mentioned in the previous video how we're gonna have like little music playing or a little sound cue whenever they speak to a human to indicate like their voice is really mesmerizing. That's still gonna be a thing, but it's gonna become less and less of a thing the more Bella interacts with him. Like, we're gonna have it just kind of like start to fade out, and then before we know it, suddenly it's not happening anymore. Suddenly we're not having that little sound cue anymore, and he's just talking to her normally, and they're having conversations. And he's gonna be like, man, you're just with me because of the vampire lore, you don't understand. And she's like, no, listen, I know myself. It was the vampire lore before. Now I just like your personality. I'm able to perform introspection well enough to know that this is no longer a matter of vampire lore, and it is now a matter of the fact that you're really like fun to be around for me. Basically, instead of being worshipful to the point of dehumanization with each other, we're going to have them be a down-to-earth variety of loving. They're going to give each other compliments still, but it's not going to be like, you're the love of my life, nothing matters but you. It's going to be like, you're really cool to be around. You play the piano very well. I like when we talk about the olden days. They start out with that foundation in the books. In the books, they do start out going, oh man, I'm very interested in you. That kind of fades away. Largely, it does become a matter of, I'm in love with you, and that's like their dialogue forever. They have some real conversations, but not as many. Character-wise, this is a bit of a difficult foundation because he's from the olden times, and she has this thing where she doesn't like to be taken care of. So he might be going into it like, you have to take care of your woman. You have to make sure that your woman is supported and cared for. And she's like, I need to be able to do this by myself or I will be very upset. I'm already getting this from my dad. I do not want it from you. In the books, he did have a lot of dad energy, which a lot of people did not enjoy. The let other people take care of you storyline is already Charlie's gig, so we're not giving Edward that. Instead of going the complimentary route of like, ah yes, this hang-up goes perfectly with this hang-up. His views on women go perfectly with her not wanting to be taken care of. We're not going with that. Instead, we're going to kind of go the common ground route in that he was raised as a male in the early 20th century, and she was raised by a negligent mother. They're both used to having to suppress their emotions. They can't really express when they're scared or in pain or sad. Now, through each other, they're both expressing all of these emotions they've been repressing, and that's why their relationship is so bonkers. And yes, though I am like gonna clean it up a little bit, it is still going to be bonkers. I really have to fight canon a bit on this one because there is a lot going against the ship canonically, and I don't want to just get rid of all of it because that's not in the spirit of the show. Like I said, there's value in everything, so let's say, okay, he was doing this, she was doing this. What can we take from that would convey a similar idea without being morally reprehensible? For me, I'm thinking we gotta lean into it a little bit. They're both dumb teens who do dumb things because their love is intense and new. And yes, we are going the route of Edward is a teenager forever. He is emotionally a teenager. He's going to be like this. He's going to be chaotic for his entire life. The fact that Stephanie Meyer characterized him as an old man a lot of the time while still saying, oh no, emotionally I'm a teenager, so it's fine, was a bit of a swing and a miss for her. It kind of gives the vibe of, I'm an old man, but you're mature for your age, so it's fine. That thing that predators say. Their love feels intense and new, so they're dumb teens doing dumb things. Emphasis on dorky and dumb and in love. Emphasis on the newness of everything and their difficulty expressing it because their feelings, they're not used to expressing their feelings. Less emphasis on their inflated sense of self-importance and their conviction that their love is the best love and stuff. Less emphasis on their disregard for other people's safety. Instead of going, oh, Bella hates attention, as just a reason to respect her, while the other characters just shower her with unwanted pageantry so that we get to have the self-insert beautiful wedding, but we don't have to worry about her being the kind of person who wants a beautiful wedding, because apparently that's bad. We're going to actually develop the fact that because of her upbringing and being kind of neglected by her mother, she has difficulty feeling that she deserves to be celebrated. If we're going just surface level with this because we're scared that making Bella too flawed will make people not like her anymore, she doesn't feel that she deserves to be celebrated, and she learns that she does deserve to be celebrated because people convey to her that she deserves to feel special, and then she learns it and it's good. I would honestly kind of like to expound on it though and have it be that not only does she feel this discomfort with being celebrated, but she also feels kind of annoyed when other people are celebrated. Her feelings that she doesn't deserve to feel special have created this reaction in her that others don't deserve to make spectacles of their milestones or accomplishments. Don't make a big deal celebrating my birthday. Don't make a big deal celebrating yours either. I don't want all this fanfare for anybody. I just like us to be going through our lives silently and comfortably. She isn't mean about it. Like, she's not like, oh, will you get over yourself? She's not like making a whole thing. It does make her uncomfortable when anyone is being genuinely lauded. Maybe she'll have a line like, I don't know how anyone could enjoy that. We're all just trying to live our lives. Why aren't we allowed to just keep our heads down without making every little thing an event? She's gonna say this to Charlie, by the way. It's gonna be Charlie she says this to. And then Charlie, through some little probing and questions, is going to unearth that Renee was very sporadic about remembering her milestones and accomplishments. Maybe she forgets her birthday a lot of the time, and that's why Bella gets this feeling of, it's no big deal to leave my birthday alone. And so Charlie's gonna be the one to deliver the lesson that it's okay to let people feel special, and it's okay to feel special yourself. Maybe we'll let her surprise Jessica with a gift for her birthday or something like that to show that growth. All of this to say, by the time her birthday party is a thing, she will be cool with actually celebrating. She's still getting used to it, but she's not actively opposed to the idea, so she willingly lets Alice go wild with stuff. She's not like, no, Alice, please don't give me a party, and then Alice gives her a party, and it's like, hey, Alice, she asked you not to. Bella's still wincing a little, but she's getting into it, and she's like enjoying it. By the time the wedding rolls around, she's having more fun with it than she ever thought she would. She's picking out bouquets. It's still reserved by most people's standards, but Bella's going to just be like, I chose the bouquet, and I liked the bouquet that I chose, and I feel that I deserve to have that bouquet because I'm getting married. Like, we're gonna have those little victories of like, man, I do deserve to have a nice wedding, and I do want a nice wedding, and I'm happy about the way the wedding turned out. It'll be fun to watch her develop that sense of self-esteem, especially since it's no longer in a written format, so it's not going to be, oh, she's selfless in the sense that she drags the reader through self-flagellatory prose for extended periods of time, repeatedly emphasizing how selfish she thinks she is, while the other characters go, oh no, you're so selfless, you never think of anyone else. And that's how they talk forever now. Oh no, I shouldn't have done that. I'm so selfish for doing that. But like, she doesn't stop doing it. She doesn't feel that she's being selfish enough to stop doing what she's doing, just enough to spend 2 pages talking about it or thinking about it. And the reader's just like, yep, another paragraph of this. That's fun. Disposition-wise, she'll be more friendly and less judgmental than Book Bella, but she'll still be awkward, clumsy, and kind of on the morose side. The books say repeatedly that she's a bad liar. They also have people believe her lies pretty much all of the time, indicating that she's a good liar. But honestly, that kind of works for screen anyway, because that's always how people lie in shows and movies. They'll just be like, oh, I went to the to bakery, and that's how people lie in movies and shows all the time, and people still believe them, like, oh, you went to the bakery, cool. As if that's how people talk. So we can keep her being a bad liar and people believing her if we want. Okay, finally we're off the Bella section, because that felt like it took long and my throat already hurts. Second human on the list, we got Charlie. Charlie Swan. It's never really relevant that he's a cop, so he's just kinda not be one. I was thinking like, hey, what plot relevant job could we give him? The fact that he was a cop didn't really play into a lot of stuff in the books. The fact that they respected him and called him Chief was something. The fact that he was, you know, going after killers and like giant wolves, that's kind of something, but it also never was super plot relevant that he was doing that. If he hadn't been doing that, the plot still would have largely happened the way it did anyway. Just in the background, it was like, oh yeah, Charlie's looking for big dogs. He's never going to find one. He's not going to find a wolf and end up in that kind of situation. The only time he finds a werewolf is when a werewolf is like, hey, Charlie, I'm a werewolf. If we make him a doctor, then he works with Carlisle, and that would be a cool dynamic of like, oh, they work in the hospital together. 2 bros chilling in a hospital. I don't really want to do that though, because I want Carlisle to be the one who's a doctor, because I like the dynamic of like, he is the team doctor. He is the one we go to when there's an injury. Carlisle's the guy. I thought about making Charlie a fireman. There's kind of a connection there in that like fire's the thing that kills vampires, but that doesn't really work on more than a surface level. Like he's not setting fires. He doesn't have a flamethrower as a fireman, so that doesn't really give him anything. What I'm settling on here is I'm gonna have my cake and eat it too with regards to him being respected by the community and being called chief and stuff, in that he used to be a cop, but now he's a social worker. So people will still be like, hey chief, and he's like, ex-chief, I'm a social worker now. I don't have any current plans to give him an arc as such, but his job is going to kind of inform his relationship with Billy Black, Jacob's dad, and Harry Clearwater, Leah's dad, in that he's going to see a lot of systemic prejudice in his line of work. Maybe the other social workers are way more willing and inclined to take Indigenous children away from their household and like send them up for adoption, whereas Charlie is more compassionate and like, hey, no, that's not a proportionate response to what's happening here. If this were a real show that was actually being made, this is the point at which I would find some actual Native Americans who are experts on the subject of this kind of prejudice and hire them to consult on the writing of these scenes. You know, ask them how they would want this issue approached and addressed, and you know, the facts of the matter. But I don't have a crack team, and this isn't a real show, so I'm gonna kind of leave it. So yeah, he's a social worker, he's an ex-cop, he's friends with Billy and Harry, and he's a functional adult who can cook and clean and doesn't need his daughter to tell him not to microwave a soup can. It wasn't a soup can, it was like a jar of spaghetti sauce or something. There was a spoon in it. He's not looking for love, but if someone asks him out, he'll go. Like, he'll just be like, you know, it's fun. Yeah, sure, let's go out on a date. That's fun. There's no drama with him. He's secure and kind. Obviously, we're getting rid of that canonical book moment where he congratulates Jacob for kissing Bella non-consensually. The movie kind of dodged that moment by having him be silent the whole time. In this show, what we're gonna have Charlie do is pull Jacob aside and give him a lecture on consent. That's a quirk we're giving Charlie, by the way, is that he has a tendency to lecture people. Depending on how cartoony skinny we want to make this. I kind of want to make that a running gag, is that someone will be talking about something they're doing, or maybe they'll walk into a room arguing with somebody else and Charlie just happens to be there, and then it just like cuts to him lecturing them on what they're doing. So visualize a scene. Bella and Jacob walk into the Swan house and they're arguing, but they're in the background of the shot. In the foreground of the shot, Charlie's reading a book, and he looks up when he hears them arguing, and he just kind of like goes, close the book, puts it down, gets up, and then hard cut to the two on the couch listening to him lecture them. Person does a thing or says a thing, hard cut to Charlie lecturing them. The more we do it, the more we're gonna start to anticipate it, and it'll be a huge laugh, like, yes, Charlie! Of course, that's gonna be kind of like a parabola situation where it's like, oh, it's happened so much that it's funny, and we've overshot it now, it's too much, we gotta stop doing it. It's not a once an episode kind of gag. It's gotta be like a 3 times a season type deal. In short, we got functional, firm, but fair Charlie. Those are the 3 F's for Charlie Swan. Next human, we got Renee, Bella's mom. Now, the movies went a direction with Renee where they kind of took out a lot of the book stuff where it's like, wow, Renee is so flighty, where Bella is suggesting that she was like practically raising her mother and herself. The movies were like, she's flighty in the sense of like, hey, let's go on a road trip. She makes a quilt for Bella out of their trip t-shirts, not flighty in the sense of like literally neglectful parenting. We're not going to just go, Renee sucks, end of story. We're not doing that. As things start happening to Bella, she's going to realize that she's a bad parent. Maybe there's going to be a situation where Bella has been admitted to the hospital, maybe at the end of the conflict of book 1, i.e. season 1, Bella's in the hospital and both Renee and Charlie are talking to the doctor, and the doctor's like, what's Bella's blood type? And Renee's like, I don't know, and Charlie knows it. If we're going for an arc there, we could give Renee a therapist and she can like kind of talk through what a bad person she's been and call Bella like, I am so sorry. If we're going to be annoying with it, we can make her therapist a vampire, maybe from the Volturi, who's there to spy on Bella or infiltrate the Cullens or something, like make it a little dramatic thing of like, I have a new therapist, and then the therapist is a vampire, and ooh no, the therapist is a vampire, that matters. But I don't really like it when shows do that, when it's like, yes, I have a new boyfriend, here he is, a vampire, oh no! I don't like that stuff, so we're not gonna do that in my mind, but we could make the therapist a vampire if we want to. It's a gimmick we don't need. I think we just want her going to therapy to be a good thing. I don't think we need to complicate it like, she's going to therapy, good, oh no, she's a vampire, she should have anticipated that. She'll be atoning for her bad parenting in various ways throughout the series, like little phone calls or little gifts that she'll mail to Bella and stuff like that. But her role in the parts of the series that come from the books, her role in the canon bits is going to be as small as it was in the books. We're not going to add her into scenes where she wasn't. After the canon events of the books, when the show gets to kind of go wild, go off the rails, go crazy, what I'm going to do is kind of go the Percy Jackson mortal mom and mortal stepdad versus supernatural threat route with it. We could give Renee a flamethrower and let her torch some vampires. Probably not that, but I'm thinking in some later season when the characters are really on the bad side of the Volturi, they're gonna need someplace to go. They can't go to the Cullen house. Maybe the Cullen house has been destroyed. All of their allies have been uprooted from their homes because the Volturi are attacking them too. And all of these allies and the Cullens have to go where? They have to go to Renee's house. The Volturi won't think to go there, or at least they won't immediately think to go there, because Aro can't read Bella's mind, so he wouldn't know that much about Renee. They can research Renee, but that'll be like a second step, not a first step, so that the vampires can already converge on Renee's house before the Volturi think to do that. Also, if they didn't go to Renee's house, the Volturi would eventually use Renee against Bella, so 2 birds, 1 stone. We get a safe house, and we are keeping Renee out of the Volturi's hands. Renee, Charlie, Phil, the wolves, the imprints, and the vampires, and Renesmee, all in one house together. In order for that to happen, I'm gonna make it a big house, and in order for that to happen, I'm gonna make Phil like a major league baseball player instead of a minor league baseball player. At this point, Bella's parents learn about vampires. They know the supernatural stuff now. We're not just going, need to know basis. Nope, they know now. They know the stuff. They have to figure out a way to defend themselves, flamethrower, and Renee immediately wants to be a vampire, kind of like Bella. This is gonna be kind of like the apple doesn't fall far moment where she's like, oh man, I wanna be a vampire real bad immediately. She's not gonna become one though, because that's just too much. But yeah, she thinks vampires are very cool and she wants to be one. Then again, once you learn about vampires in the Twilight universe, you kind of have to become a vampire. Not because of the Volturi even, but because like, can you really go through life knowing that anyone can just grab and eat you and like you can do nothing about it? Then again, I'm giving her a flamethrower. She has a flamethrower, she's fine. She and Phil might swing with Kate and Garrett just because I feel like they have similar energies. I've got to stop developing this idea now or else I never will. Next human is Phil. He's gonna still basically be a ghost for a long time because I think that's funny to see him as little as possible to a suspicious degree. Hey, we've never seen Phil. We've had some cutaways to Renee and we always see like the back of Phil's head or something. What's up with Phil? Where's Phil's face? He's gonna be like Wizard Wizard Kelly for a bit. There will always be some reason not to see Phil on screen. We see Phil in the fridge, and then he starts to close the fridge, and we're like, oh, we get to finally see Phil, and then a cabinet opens and we can't see his face. That's what I want. But that's only gonna be for the canon book events. Like with Renee, that's only gonna happen for the canon book events. When we're living in his house, we're going to see him, although it would be funny if we still didn't. When his house becomes the base for the vampire resistance, that's gonna be the first time we see Phil, and it's gonna be so exciting. Like, we see Phil! And he's not even gonna be like a famous actor, he's just a guy, but it's still cool. It's like, we finally see Phil's face. Maybe we'll have him be like attractive, so it'll be like, oh man, we finally saw Phil's face, and hold on a minute. Or I guess we could do like a little gag casting and have him be a guy who was in the Twilight movies. When we finally get to enjoy Phil as a character, I want to be very jolly and go with the flow. We understand how he and Renee get along so well because like Renee will be like, let's do this, and he'll be like, yeah, let's do it, sure, why not? I'm going with the flow, babe. It'll be comedic to have him calmly chatting with the supernatural creatures while like Charlie and Renee freak out about it. Like, wait a minute, are you telling me that my daughter is a vampire now? You drink blood? Have you killed people? No, only animals? Still, that's weird. You've like pinned down animals and drunk from their veins? Cut to Phil coming in with his tray of lemonade like, okay, I think I have enough lemonade for the wolves and the humans. Can I get you vampires anything? Never mind. Phil owns a dog, which he loves, and the vampires really want to eat his dog. There's gonna be a point similar to in Breaking Dawn where like they're consigned to the house, they can't leave the house. Volturi are like surrounding them so they can't leave without getting picked off. So it's like, man, I want to eat that dog. He's not human. I shouldn't eat Bella's parents, but I can eat that dog. Phil is not going to pick up on the clear signs that one of those vampires is gonna eat his dog. The imaginary fandom for this imaginary show is gonna be like, no one better kill that dog. Wait, no, don't look at the dog. Like, it's gonna be great. People are gonna be like, if someone kills that dog, I'm gonna be very upset. And I, the writer of this imaginary show, am gonna be like, I have power over you. I could have someone eat the dog if I wanted. Phil keeps cheerfully accidentally saving the dog like a vampire's like about to eat it, and he walks into the room like, hey guys, what you doing? And in the imaginary fandom for this imaginary show, Twitter goes nuts anytime any vampire looks at the dog. I'm gonna have a scene start with a shot of the dog walking into a room, and everyone's gonna have their hearts like beating so fast, and I'm gonna be like, fear, my puppets, fear. We're done with Bella and the parent figures, now to the human friends. The movies did a really good job with Bella's human friends, and I'd be cool with making them the way they were in the movies, but I think if this were a real show, there would be some copyright reason not to do that. And anyway, I want to imagine a product that stands on its own, so I'm gonna diverge. I'm gonna go a different route with it. First, we're starting with Eric. In the book, Bella specifically characterizes Eric as like greasy with acne and visibly nerdy, and it's like, geez, Bella. But he's characterized as nerdy in a way that's kind of reminiscent of like the stereotypical Poindexter. We're gonna update the kind of nerd he is, 21 Jump Street style. I think I like the idea of going Lego robotics with it. He's a Lego robotics kind of nerd, like Peter and Ned in Spider-Man Homecoming. Also, there's gonna be a running gag with him that he seems to have every extracurricular activity, such that like we're never gonna need to have an extra passing out flyers or selling tickets to something or being on the morning announcements, because it's going to be Eric always. Eric is always the guy doing stuff. Again, depending on how cartoony we want to make it, maybe we'll see Eric passing out tickets, and then we'll see him on the morning announcements, and it's like, wait, where'd he go? How'd he get there so fast? I guess that doesn't work if any school pre-records their morning announcements, but my high school always had the morning announcements live. In the books, I'm pretty sure he was the valedictorian instead of Jessica. I liked Jessica as valedictorian in the movies, but I'm gonna keep the books thing where he's valedictorian. It doesn't make that much of a difference. I'm not gonna have him give a cool speech or anything. Eric isn't going to have a huge role, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on now. Mike. In the books, it seems like his character pretty much exists to emphasize that Bella is desirable. Yeah, we have annoying nerds crushing on Bella, but what about hot guys? Yeah, Mike is cute, girls like him, and he wants Bella. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be desired, but I'm gonna kind of go a different way with it. And this Mike is kind of just gonna be one of those teenage boys who is flirty like every high school has. Kind of flirts with all of the girls in a haha, just kidding, unless kind of way. He's not particularly infatuated with Bella, but he would definitely be down if she reciprocated his flirtation. Also, I'm gonna have him and Jessica mutually crushing on each other, because Stephanie Meyer's Jessica likes Mike, but Mike likes Bella, and Bella mercifully donates Mike to her out of pity and just to get Mike off her back. That angle feels kind of mean. Mike and Jessica are gonna kind of have an idiots in love vibe in a very teenagery way, but not like a mean-spirited, ha, teens are idiots kind of thing. It's gonna be very nostalgic in tone, like, oh man, you know how kooky the teen years were, that was crazy. They'll have normal youthful mishaps and be a little immature about expressing their feelings is what I'm saying. They're human, they're young. The relationship will be played for laughs in some way, in that the audience and Bella are going to derive amusement from their relationship drama, but it's also going to parallel similar relationship drama that Bella and Edward are gonna have, and that's gonna kind of further drive home that Edward and Bella are just regular teenagers but with supernatural stakes. It's like, no, they're still doing similar stuff to Mike and Jessica, they just happen to be doing it on a supernatural, life-threatening scale. scale. Moving on from Mike, Jessica. Jessica is gonna be like comically messy. She's gonna be stirring the pot in a whimsical way. She's not deliberately a gossip, but she'll kind of let stuff slip, but it's not like an artifice of like, oh no, I've said too much. It's like Scar from The Lion King. It's gonna be kind of more, she'll let things slip while discussing other things, so it won't occur to her not to mention a thing because she's withholding something on a different front. Just by virtue of talking for long enough, she'll let something slip and just be like, oh man, that was a total secret, oh my gosh. If Bella ever wants to spread a rumor about herself, she'll casually mention it's Jessica and then tell her, don't tell anybody. And then it'll be around the school like so fast because Jessica just accidentally tells people things. We're never gonna play it as deliberate though. Jessica's just a little bit scatterbrained. The movie version of Jessica was like quirky honor student valedictorian. She'll talk about the themes and messages of a zombie movie and like how it's a metaphor for consumerism. So she's very perky and girly and stuff. I like the movie's vibe. I like that she gets to be very smart and also very teenage girl, unapologetically so. I like that she says some girls like to shop. For the show, I'm going for an intersection of theater kid and band kid. Jessica always is gonna have an anecdote from drama practice or band camp. Her energy is pleasant to be around. When Bella becomes a bridge between the Cullens and like the rest of the school, or at least between the Cullens and her friend group, Jessica is gonna get along really well with Alice, and we're gonna actually show that. It's gonna be very fun. Next up is Angela. In canon, Angela is a preacher's daughter. In the show, I'm gonna make her gay, and we're deriving no drama from that in the slightest. There's no drama as a result of her being a preacher's daughter who is gay. She's just gay, and she has a dad who's a preacher. They're not mad, it's fine. In the books, Angela is in a relationship with Ben, who does not exist in the movies. In the movies, Angela is in a relationship with Eric. I'm gonna kind of go a different route and say that Angela is in a relationship with Lauren. Lauren wasn't in the movies, but she existed in the books as just like a blonde girl to not like Bella. You can tell when Jessica is on Bella's side and when she isn't, because when she's on Bella's side, she's with Bella, and when she's not on Bella's side, she's with Lauren. Angela has a crush on Lauren. It's a very sugar and salt ship. It's very cute. Like in the books and movies, here Angela's gonna be mellow and kind. We're also gonna give her a slightly twisted side just to play off of Lauren. This is kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but I will divulge that in this series, Lauren is going to be a little bit on the goth side, a little bit on the punk side. More punk leaning than goth really, but kind of like snarky and dark. So that's going to be Lauren's characterization. I'll get to that later. Don't worry. If you're worried about what I just said, don't worry. I'll get to it. So Angela is going to kind of play off of that. She'll just be like, oh my gosh, I love your sketch of a dead deer. It looks so pretty and realistic. Or you're so talented. Can I see more of your art, or is that too personal? And then Lauren will kind of be like, I mean, you can see my sketchbook if you want. And then Angela showers her in praise, and it's like really cute. It's the first time we see Lauren be soft with somebody. The vibe between Angela and Jessica and Bella is going to be closer to movie version than book version, and I realize that I've said that I'm trying not to go to a movie version with it, but in that regard it is going to be kind of movie-ish, in that it's like they all hang out together and talk together, and like it's very cool and fun. They're tight and they do activities and they enjoy each other's company. Thematically, Angela is going to be kind of the opposite of Jessica. Instead of being comically prone to relationship speed bumps that parallel what Bella and Edward are doing, Angela's relationship will be dramatically devoid of speed bumps to contrast with Bella and Edward. And what I don't want to do here is go, oh, queer ships are perfect and there's never any abuse or toxicity, they're completely perfect. Like that's a harmful message, and like that's something that I'm gonna have to account for in this. There'll be other queer ships, so we're gonna kind of avert that problem by virtue of not having only one be the representation. But yes, for specifically Angela and Lauren, they're gonna be dramatically devoid of speed bumps to contrast with what Bella and Edward are going through. So you know that moment in the Twilight movie where Bella's in the car escaping from James, and she looks out the window and she sees her human friends just like walking out of a restaurant, hanging out and being human and young and happy, and you kind of get that sense of, oh man, that's what she's missing out on by virtue of being in a relationship with a vampire. She's missing that side of life that she should be allowed to have. That's basically the role that Angela and Lauren are going to be playing, is like giving her that sense of, oh man, this is something that I can't have because I'm in a relationship with a vampire. Maybe at some point while Bella is really feeling the impact of not being able to talk to Charlie about the vampire stuff, she's going to find out that Angela's dad is a preacher, and she's going to be like, oh man, I hate to pry, but does he know that you're gay? Yes, I feel so lucky that I don't have to keep secrets from him. I don't know what I would do if I couldn't talk to him about stuff. Maybe a little on the nose for what Bella's going through, but you get the gist. Bella feels sad that she can't tell Charlie the full story, and she kind of has to shoulder the mystical stuff by herself, but don't worry, Bella. Just wait till season 6. Tyler, short section because he's not a major friend character, but we are going to make recklessness a trait of his so that almost killing Bella is the culmination of something, and his penitence after that is like kind of almost an arc. Now for Lauren. Basically the direction I'm going with Lauren is that she's kind of a little bit on the goth side, very much on the punk side, very frank. She's not gonna be framed as a villain, and she's not gonna be framed as like the hot blonde girl we're supposed to hate because she's blonde and femme and doesn't like Bella. She is still blonde and feminine, and she does still have a poor disposition towards Bella. It's just that she gives no craps about Bella's drama, really. I'd like not to frame her as a villain or a hero. Like, we're not gonna sit there like, yeah, thank you for giving it to Bella, Lauren. Finally. We're not gonna go full, she's our queen, she's our Sharpay, and we're gonna girl boss her after the fact. None of that. We're gonna be pretty neutral about her. Like, she's just a girl saying her thoughts. You can take them or leave them. She's still pretty and popular, and we're gonna kind of give the vibe that she could hang out with whatever friend group she wants to, and she hangs out with Jessica and Bella for Angela. Like, she hangs out with them because Angela's there and she likes Angela. Last canon human character, Emily. I'll get to her later. I'm not doing her in this section. I'm actually gonna go ahead and put her in the werewolf section, not because she's gonna become a werewolf or something, but just because I'm not ready to talk about her yet. Now it's time to talk about the Cullens. Who are the Cullens, you ask? Well, it's Edward, Emmett, Alice, Jasper, Carlisle, Esme, Rosalie. 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 Don't waste your time with Edward, cause he's too hot for you. Now you know the crazy Cullen crew. That's from Twilight the Musical, a series of YouTube videos that is very old, if you're not well versed in your early Twilight fandom lore. I'm gonna get to these characters in the order of the song, so Edward, Emmett, Alice, Jasper, Carlisle, Esme, Rosalie, and Renesmee, which means that Rosalie's gonna be last, but do remember despite that she is one of the main characters. Like I said in the previous video, the three main characters are Bella, Rosalie, and Leah, so keep in mind Rosalie is still a main character. I'm just gonna go in order of the song, because that's the life I live. Edward. Edward is grumpy but well-meaning, like I mentioned in the previous video. He's pretentious in the way of a teenager taking his first TOK class, and as a result, feeling uniquely suited to understanding truths about the universe and humanity and life. It's like, oh man, everything is an illusion, and I'm the only one who understands that. That teenage pretentiousness is going to be like replacing his old man behavior from the books. We have to tamp down on the creepy stuff he does with regards to Bella, but I don't want to just throw canon in a garbage disposal. I feel like it's more skillful to keep what can be kept, but frame it in a better light. As a vampire and a mind reader, it makes sense that his concept of privacy would be kind of lacking, and it's understandable that his concept of morality was pretty much just orbiting don't eat people for a century. Doing creepy stuff isn't even going to register to him as creepy straight away. I'm not making excuses, hear me out. Maybe like we'll see him on his way out of the house and Carlisle's gonna be like, where are you going? And Edward's just like, it's cool, I'm just gonna break into her house for a little bit to check on her. And Carlisle's gonna be like, Edward, you can't do that. And he's like, oh wait, yeah, no, you're right, I can't do that. That would be very messed up to do. Thank you for reminding me of the social rules of humans. He has to reintroduce himself to human morality, because with his siblings, it's just a matter of like, I've read your mind and I know that you're not actively making out, so I can just walk into your room. And everyone else he just doesn't socialize with. Like, he's not socializing with humans. He hasn't knocked on a door in his entire life. You think rich men in the 1910s were knocking on doors? But yeah, when he was breaking into her house in the books, it's gotta be like, a part of me is wondering, hey, why is Carlisle letting him do that? Here, Carlisle's not letting him do that. Vampires are very obsessive about what they care about. They have intense feelings about things. This, what I'm about to say, is more of a headcanon than canon, but I feel like it's because they don't sleep and they live forever, so they kind of have to develop a strong sense of passion for things in order for their immortal life not to suck. I'm never going to be able to take a nap or like just turn my brain off for a bit, so I have to care a lot about the things that I care about. As a result though, Edward's feelings of curiosity towards Bella and eventually love for Bella are going to kind of give him a need to be around her. He's not just addicted to the smell of her blood, but to her presence. And as a result, like, while he is not stalking her because he knows that it would be wrong, because Carlisle reminded him that it would be wrong, he does have huge difficulty not stalking her, because vampire instincts are like, go stalk her, and he's like, no, that would be wrong. Kind of like he has difficulty not eating her, he also has difficulty not stalking her, but he controls himself. It's very essential to know that he controls himself until Bella is like, no, you can climb in my window at night. Until that point, he does not climb in her window at night. We still do want to honor the spirit of the text instead of like 86ing it completely though. So what I'm gonna have happen instead of him literally breaking into her house is, when it gets kind of unbearable and he really needs to be around her but he doesn't want to break into her house, he's gonna like call her. There'll be times where she's sleeping and then she gets a 3 a.m. call from Edward Cullen. Hello? Hello, Bella. I was wondering what you got on number 4 in biology. Edward, it's 3 a.m. Every night he's actively resisting the urge to break into her house. So it's just gonna culminate in like, hey Bella, and hearing her voice tides him over. Depending on how weird we want to make it, I kind of like to imagine that the actor for Edward Cullen has like a very like face when he hears her voice, just like, oh thank goodness, oh my gosh. Also, in the interest of keeping to the spirit of the text, we are still going to have the I like watching you sleep type of interaction. It's not going to be exactly that egregious. What we're going to have happen is Edward and Bella are sitting next to each other on the school bus for a field trip, and she falls asleep against the window and he watches her sleep then, not in her house, in like on a school bus for a field trip. And when she wakes up, she sees that he's staring at her and she's just like, were you watching me sleep? He's gonna have an oh crap face, like, oh, she caught me, and he's gonna just be like, yes. And it's gonna be so awkward, and I want it so bad. Canonically, he took some time off from murdering people sometime in the 20th century. He broke off from Carlisle for a bit and did murder. Also canonically, he killed abusers and stuff. He killed the man who abused Esme. He killed people who did assault others. He would read people's minds, determine who deserved in his mind to be killed, and he killed them. Because of his mind reading, he knew who was going to do harm. I want to develop that a little in that he still has the inklings of vigilantism even now. He's not still killing people who murder or do assault, but he is going to stop those crimes from happening. Hearing people's thoughts and knowing they're going to do a bad thing makes him feel complicit if he just lets them do the bad thing. Sometimes we'll have him pause mid-conversation and go, hold on, I gotta stop a crime. Even just in passing, maybe he and Bella are walking down a school hallway and he knows that a guy is about to like grope a girl. He just grabs the guy's wrist entirely in passing. The dynamic in the books with his parents, or at least the intended dynamic, since the family doesn't really interact much in canon, is that Carlisle is the respected parent and Esme is the comfort parent. Carlisle is the role model, Esme is the morality pet. This is likely the result of Stephenie Meyer's idea of gender roles, but I'm gonna kind of salvage what I can from that. I'm gonna run with it. Carlisle is the parent that Edward tries to live up to, and Esme is the parent who he talks to honestly. With Carlisle, there's still a feeling that Edward really wants to impress Carlisle and convince him that he's like a good person, that he's just like him, good like Carlisle. And with Esme, he can actually be himself more. She's the one he can confide in and learn relatable lessons from. She's his Charlie, basically. Maybe we can have her do one time we're gonna have her do the lecture gag where it's like someone will do something and she'll like stop doing what she's doing and we'll hard cut to the Cullens on the sofa while she gives a lecture. That would be a fun little twist. I like that. We're doing that in the imaginary show. In the books, she wasn't even that because she couldn't really do anything besides be nice in the background or be worried in the background or satisfy the heteronormativity of Carlisle. Next up, Emmett. I've gotten off track by starting to talk about Esme. That was the Edward section though. Now we're gonna talk about Emmett. As I said in the first video, we're going well-meaning himbo route with Emmett. Maybe he'll still make a few sex jokes, but it's not gonna be quite as pervasive for him as it was in the books. Haha, did you just have sex with your husband? That's hilarious. He's gonna be pretty simple and straightforward. He's happy with his life and his family. He doesn't really have a lot of big discoveries to make about himself. He'll mostly be doing background goofs and moral support for whatever character is having a crisis this episode, unless at some point I think of an arc for him. I think I'll make him the first of the Cullens to generally befriend one of the wolves. Again, this is kind of deriving from the movies, which I know that I'm trying not to do, but in Eclipse, there's like the slightest little bit of an arc where Emmett and Paul start off beefing, and then they kind of have each other's back in the fight, so it's like, oh man, that came full circle. They're helping each other. Emmett and Paul, man. We're gonna kind of harken to that inkling of a subplot by having Emmett be the first one to befriend one of the wolves. We're gonna take it way farther than the movie did in that Emmett's gonna legit be like playing video games with this guy. Like they'll share usernames on social media platforms with each other, like, hey, can I hit you up on whatever himbos interact on? You know what, I'm giving Emmett a Tumblr, who cares? And like, hey, can you hit me up on whatever forum is still relevant at the time this show doesn't get made? Of course, all their interactions are online because Emmett can't go to La Push and the werewolf isn't allowed to go to the Cullen house, either by Sam or just by his family. Like, no, you can't go to the vampire house. Maybe we'll make it like Embry or Quill or something. Probably not though. It can still be Paul, maybe, if that's not a copyright issue. In the middle of contentious showdowns between the Cullens and the wolves, these two guys are just so clearly bros. Unless it's a legit serious moment, in which case we're gonna actually draw drama from the fact that when it comes down to it, Emmett is going to fight for his family and the wolf is going to fight for his family. So it's just like, man, I like you, but I gotta back my people though. Other than that, we'll maybe have a few instances where Emmett's impulsiveness causes minor problems, but he's not really gonna drive major story arcs. He's mostly there to enjoy, not worry about. Not to say that he doesn't have depth. He's gonna have moments where he like reminisces on his family and his thoughts on being immortal and stuff. Like, we're gonna see that he has depth. He just isn't going to drive the narrative a lot. Now for Alice. Okay, let's reflect on the fact that Alice does not have any human memories. She does not have any memories from being a human. Let's reflect on that for like 5 seconds. Okay, now let's reflect on the fact that Meyer never really draws any comedy or drama from that. She never really does much with it in the entire series. Okay, now let's go buck wild. Drama-wise, Alice really wants to be close to Rosalie and to be close to Esme and like her family, but she feels that in some cases she can't really relate to them because they still have lingering feelings from being a human, and she just doesn't have that at all. This is especially the case with Rosalie, where Alice really wants to relate to Rosalie, and Rosalie is still very bogged down by her relationship with humanity. Alice feels like she's useless in deep conversations because she can't relate or really draw from anything when Carlisle's giving a speech on what it means to be human or why humanity is valuable. Because she ostensibly has no past, she comes across as kind of shallow and flighty sometimes. She seems kind of spacey and no thoughts head empty when you meet her, but she feels deeply, which makes her a great fit for Jasper because he's the emotions guy. Alice is very emotionally driven. Usually she's very cheerful and serene and fun to be around, but not knowing things makes her very upset. Like, it makes her agitated to not know things. It's why she doesn't dwell on the past, because she doesn't know the past and that upsets her. And it's why she really hates it when something is blocking her vision, because it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. This is very like uncomfortable and upsetting for me. Comedy wise, there's a lot of random human stuff that she just does not know about. When she's socializing with Bella and Jessica, this is going to become very obvious.
Give me a minute, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm on my monthly. Your monthly what? My period. Oh, the period of time in which some people have blood fall out of their uterus. I forgot about that.
I forget about mine every month until it happens. I'm always surprised.
Oh my gosh, same. Okay, bye girls.
That was a lie. I keep a calendar I was just covering for you.
Thank you.
Alice likes shopping, she likes sewing, she likes bedazzling maybe. She likes painting, she likes decorating. Alice really likes to make things pretty. She doesn't really do the renovation type stuff like Esme does. That's kind of Esme's thing, is that she does like home renovation. Alice doesn't go that far because she doesn't like the fact that in real construction situations you have to make things ugly in order to make things pretty, and she doesn't want to do that. She wants the instant gratification of, I have put a picture on the wall and it is pretty. She doesn't want like, I have to tear out this wall to make a better wall. She doesn't like any of that stuff. She doesn't, that's also why she doesn't do the like mechanics stuff like Rosalie does. She doesn't want to take apart anything in order to put it together. Making things superficially better in the immediate is something that she derives joy from. It's not like a flaw she has to overcome, that's just something about her. She's very dotingly affectionate with Jasper. She likes like hugging him and jumping on his back and doing that thing where like you caress someone's face to get them to look at you in the eye. She shops as much for him as for herself. And also in any given conversation with him, she is exactly one impulse away from saying, let's get married again, let's have another wedding. It's like very fun. Her love for him is very strong. She's close to Edward in that they'll stand next to each other and hold entire mental conversations, and they understand each other very well because they both have like mental powers. If ever a character needs to convince Edward to do something, Carlisle and Alice stand the best chance of doing it, except for Bella, I guess. If someone needs to convince Alice of doing something, Edward and Jasper stand the best chance of doing it. With Rosalie and Esme, because she feels like she doesn't have that deep connection of understanding their human memories, Alice expresses love and affection through gift giving. This also serves to deflect when they want to kind of breach a topic that she doesn't feel she is able to discuss. She'll just suddenly go, I got you a decorative figurine of an elephant! I got you a macrame wall hanging! Just like throwing stuff at them to avoid having to get into the unrelatable human discussions. With Emmett, she indulges his chaos. Rosalie might walk into the room and Emmett is just like lifting Alice like she's a weight at the gym, benching Alice basically. And Rosalie sighs in a casual manner, implying this isn't the first time this has happened. And she's just like, babe, you know you can't bulk up anymore, right? We don't grow. Our bodies don't change. And Alice is just like, I'm having fun. On to Jasper. I already went over how we could change his character in the previous video, so I don't think I need to do that again here. Here we can kind of discuss his relationships and how he interacts with the other characters. I think I'd like him to be a character who doesn't talk much. He gets a fair amount of focus because he makes good facial expressions to convey what he's thinking. When he needs to talk, he does, and he makes his words count, but he doesn't talk a lot. When he does talk, he'll convey what he needs to convey, and he gets some good little quips in at other characters' expense. He's sarcastic and cool, and again, Alice brings out his soft and caring side. Emmett brings out his dumb and fun side. Like in the first video, I mentioned that there's a snowball fight with the Cullens. Jasper has a snowball fight with Emmett because Emmett brings out his dumb and fun side. With Emmett, he can just be a bro. Just a bro being a guy being a dude. Rosalie, I see him having a special relationship with in that, like, they share the same last name. He uses her last name because their cover story involves them being biological siblings. So I see them being actually pretty close. Like, they act like they're biological siblings. They have like a Ryan and Sharpay energy. They're the rich twins who are probably talking about you behind your back. Rosalie brings out that side, the petty, definitely talking about you behind your backside. Backside. Edward, he exists to annoy. They'll love each other. We'll get some great moments where Edward is there to protect Jasper and Jasper is there to protect Edward, but there's a lot of Jasper just annoying Edward for the fun of it. Like, those moments of genuineness between them are going to be made all the more heartwarming by the fact that Jasper is just so annoying to Edward most of the time, and Edward's reaction to Jasper's annoyingness is largely grumpiness, so it's like, heh. Jasper trolling Edward and Edward being grumpy in response. Jasper is gonna be a total mama's boy with Esme. He calls her mom, he's a huge kiss up like I kind of mentioned in the previous video. When Edward is like too grumpy to help around the house or like no one's doing anything and Esme is, he'll just be like, I'll help you, mom. And she'll be like, oh Jasper, you're so nice, and everyone's like, ugh. With Carlisle, he'll have a vibe of mutual respect, but never exactly comfort. Carlisle isn't really sure how to relate to Jasper because he didn't make the active choice to bring him into the family, and Jasper didn't make the active choice to join the family, so there's a little bit of disconnect there where it's like, we're kind of thrown together by happenstance more than choice. The two of them never really bonded, and Jasper's had experiences that Carlisle hasn't had. It's kind of like, I don't really know if I can call myself your dad kind of thing. When Alice showed up, Alice was just like, hey, I'm a part of this family now, what's up? They grew endeared to her when she started forming relationships with them. Carlisle never really bonded with Jasper. Jasper kind of feels like Carlisle is judging him for his past with eating humans and his difficulty with self-control. And of course, for his less than peaceful approach to problems where it's like, okay, we gotta kill this one, sorry. We gotta kill this one, and Carlisle's gonna be like, no, we can't do that. This dynamic will be conveyed pretty much entirely in facial expressions and like little wisps within the dialogue. Just talking to Carlisle makes Jasper feel immediately chastened, is what I'm saying. Chastened. Meanwhile, Carlisle just doesn't know how to make Jasper feel as comfortable as the others do. Even when they play baseball, Jasper is more careful with Carlisle. Like, if he bumps into him, he'll soberly apologize instead of bantering with him like he banters with the others. This dynamic is going to get resolved in Eclipse when Carlisle defers to Jasper's expertise in fighting. Like, when Carlisle says, I don't know how we can do this fight, Jasper knows how we can do this fight, Jasper, take it away, show us what you know. At that point, Jasper, that feels like a real well done son moment for Jasper. His worth within the family has been acknowledged. He's not just the burden who keeps on slipping up and almost eating Bella.
Check on Jasper. I'm sure he's very upset with himself, and I doubt he'll listen to anyone but you right now.
And Carlisle finally feels like they're bonding. He senses that thin layer of ice between them has kind of melted and they're really bonding as a father and son now. When they spar, now Jasper is bantering with him instead of apologizing. In the imaginary fandom for this imaginary show, we're gonna have some gift sets comparing those two events where it's just like, oh man, in season 1, he bumped into Carlisle and apologized. In season 3, he took Carlisle down and was like, haha, gotcha. For the rest of the show, they're gonna have a kind of father who knows his son is up to something but can't prove it, and son who is up to something vibe, kind of like John Mulaney said that he had with his father. Carlisle does get serious with him sometimes when he's faced with the fact that while Jasper knows that it's wrong to eat people and tries not to eat people, when faced with something that will harm his family, when faced with a danger to his family, Jasper will do it. Jasper will kill somebody if he has to. And Carlisle's like, no, we don't kill people. It's wrong and bad, and we don't want people to be dead. And it's like, listen, we don't want us to be dead, Dad. That's gonna kind of be the vibe sometimes with them. If a single one of the Cullens would be saved by Jasper killing someone, Jasper would do it. Whether it's a human, a vampire, a werewolf, if a single one of his family would be saved by killing someone, Jasper would do it. And it's kind of down to the other Cullens being safe and not requiring that. And Alice is both psychic and compassionate, so that averts a lot of the problems. Since I did mention in the previous video that I'm imagining Jasper as black, sometimes I'm imagining him as white anyway, because I'm like, hey, what if we actually made him white and then like dealt with it? Like, what if we just like dealt with it? But regardless, I'm just gonna make it clear now, it's not gonna be played as the angry black man trope. It's just gonna be like, listen, our family needs to survive. This is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Now for Carlisle, who I was just talking about kind of a lot. We're gonna change why he changes people, because a lot of the times it's very bad. Remember when he finds Rosalie, who's close to death after having been assaulted, and he's like, I'm gonna change her because maybe she'll want to date my son. Like, sir, time and a place for matchmaking. This is not it. Also, I'm gonna make a change where he did change people before Edward. In canon, Edward is the first person he changed, and he did it because Edward's mom begged him. I'm gonna change that a little bit. I'm gonna have it be that Edward is the first person who he changed who joined his family afterward, but he did change some people because they were living unfair lives and deserved a second chance. Once he changed them, he taught them his ideology towards vampiring, and then they kind of just left him and it was fine. Like they didn't stay and become his family, they just kind of left. And some of them kept to the I'll eat animals, and some of them became people-eating vampires. Basically, he changes people so they can live, not so they can date his family. Just generally, if we're making his distinguishing trait compassion, like Edward specifically says that he believes that Carlisle's vampire power is compassion, we have to make him compassionate in ways that manifest in the story. And to do that, we kind of have to mention what he was doing in these centuries that he was alive, besides just not eating people and hanging out with the Volturi for a bit. I'm gonna say that he didn't turn a ton of people. He wasn't just going around turning people. At the very beginning, he didn't turn anyone because of his hang-ups about souls and being a monster and stuff, but he did serve as a doctor for people who otherwise might not have been helped, or at least might not have been helped nearly as competently.
Hi, me again. Competent might have been the wrong word. I more meant that the people who were in a position to help them might have either had very few resources or they might have lacked the particular care for their well-being. I'm not really speaking to their degree of education or intelligence.
This is spoiling the OC section a little bit, but I'm gonna say that at some point between becoming a vampire and the 13th Amendment of the US Constitution, he served as a doctor for enslaved people or runaways. He would sneak onto plantations or into safe houses under cover of night, and he would give medical care to the injured or the sick. At one point, and no, I don't know how, one of the enslaved people figures out what he is, and that person learns that he could be changing them too, and she's basically going to say to him, if you know that this is wrong, if you know that I shouldn't be living like this, then make me a vampire so that I can protect myself and like get myself out of the situation. Carlisle tries to pull his whole I'm a monster, being what I am is not worth your soul type of thing, but the woman basically is going to respond with something like, if you care about my well-being on my terms instead of yours, then you'll do this for me so that I can save myself. So he changes her, and that's the first person he changes, and from then on he kind of errs on the side of only changing people who are going to die or something like that. If someone is about to die soon, especially in an unfair way, he offers them the choice to be a vampire because he has learned that he shouldn't assume that everyone would have reservations about it, and he shouldn't inflict his own reservations on everyone else when they could have a chance at a life. More on that in the OC section. The thing that's special about Edward is that Edward couldn't give permission to be changed. He was so ill, he could not be awake for Carlisle to ask him, hey, do you want to live as a vampire? But Edward's mom, who was also ill, said, change my son. And Carlisle did it without Edward's permission, and he still feels kind of guilty about it. Also, of course, Edward is special, like I already said, in that he stays with Carlisle afterwards, partially because he was very young when he was changed. Similar deal with Rosalie, though. She was young, her almost death was so unfair, and Carlisle changed her without her permission, and he's also still guilty about that. In this version, they are the two that Carlisle couldn't ask for permission, and I know what you're thinking, hang in there. In this version, Carlisle or Rosalie got permission from Emmett before he changed him. In canon, Emmett was a little bit awake when he was brought to Carlisle. He thought that Rosalie was an angel, so it's not that far a stretch to have Rosalie just go, do you want to keep living? And Emmett will be like, yeah, I want to keep living. And then Carlisle will just bite him or something like that. You know, like it's some kind of a little thing there. Some interaction happens such that Carlisle gets verbal permission from Emmett before changing him. Similar deal with Esme, getting to that later. Carlisle is pretty much legitimately friends with Aro, although he disapproves of Aro's lifestyle and the fact that he kills people. It really like makes him sad that Aro is killing people because he's his dear friend, but that's such a wrong thing to do. And Aro thinks that Carlisle is pretty much out of his mind for choosing the animal diet, where it's like, they don't make you nearly as strong as human blood does. Why are you doing this weird diet when humans are the only things that taste good to us? And they don't live that long anyway. Maybe at first we'll play this relationship between them in the traditional vampires with gay undertones way, but then we'll steadily increase the gay undertones until it's like, oh wait, I think they're canonically exes here. This isn't over the course of seasons though, because if we do it over the course of seasons, then it won't seem like it was planned. It'll seem like we got pressured by fans in the imaginary fandom for this imaginary show. What I'm saying is within one flashback of Carlisle's backstory, we're gonna pretty much go from he was friends with Aro to he was friends with Aro, and I'm sure a lot of people ship it, to he was friends with Aro, and I think the fact that a lot of people ship it is the point, to oh man, I think that they were legitimately dating and it's canon. But they're both happy with their mates now. And their mates have no problem with the fact that they're exes and they're still friends. There's no jealousy there. There's no like pining between them. Yeah, they're comfortably friends. We're really going to emphasize his compassion by playing into the idea of what a weirdo he is to the other vampires and how upset it makes him when the other vampires are eating humans. He's not gonna make a spectacle of it, but he is going to be legitimately very upset by them eating humans. So it's not gonna be, oh, you're visiting my home, so of course I'll lend you my car so you can go a safe distance before eating people, so I know that I don't know the people you're eating. Like, we're not gonna do that. If his friends are visiting him, they won't eat people out of respect for the fact that he cares that they don't eat people. They will be eating animals while they're with him. And I realized that the fact that they were eating people in Breaking Dawn while they were visiting him was largely as a result of we're asking a huge favor of them by even being here, so it seems like too much to ask them not to eat people too. We're averting that by just kind of doubling down on the fact that they respect Carlisle and care about his emotions. Oh man, I hate this veggie diet, but I'll do it for you, Carlisle, because I care about you, because we're friends. But yeah, by vampire standards, he's such a weirdo. Like, maybe he'll see a stranger who is red-eyed, they'll just be like eating a person, and he'll ask them to be decent, to be like, please don't kill people, please, you can just eat animals. I don't know if you know this, but we can just eat animals, please don't kill this man. And then the vampire is just like, sir, I don't know if you know this, but this is food. I'm holding food right now. Esme! This character also doesn't have much canonically to be doing, so let's get cracking. I want to change her manner of death just because Meyer has a really heavy theme of suicide, and I'd like to tamp down on that where I can.
Hi, me again. To be clear, this wasn't me saying that there's anything wrong with just the act of depicting suicide in a work of fiction or using it as a theme. I don't think it's very well utilized in canon, but this is mostly just a change I wanted to make because it suited the characterization I wanted for everyone. Namely, Rosalie and Edward being the ones who didn't get to choose to be a vampire resonated more with me than them having that in common with Emmett and Esme. That said, it occurs to me as I'm editing this compilation that it could be poignant to have Edward and Esme bond over having both experienced suicidal thoughts and actions. So it remains an option to keep the suicide aspect of Esme's backstory intact while also keeping her having been awake for Carlisle to ask about the vampire thing. We could have it both ways is what I'm saying. Take all of this how you will, writing-wise. Love you guys. Stay safe out there.
Canonically, Esme was the victim of domestic abuse at the hands of her husband. She lost a baby, and as a result of that sadness, she jumped off a cliff and died. I'm going to push all of those events pretty much together, and I'm going to make her husband her cause of death. Her husband killed her. Her husband is the reason that she lost the baby. Carlisle is able to change her because he overhears the altercation or like something of that nature. And he's able to ask permission before he changes her because it's not a matter of her heart was still beating, so it's fine. If right now you're thinking, no, the fact that Esme was pretty much dead but her heart was still beating a little bit is why Bella is convinced she'll survive the pregnancy. Well, we'll just make that Rosalie. Rosalie can be the one who was basically dead but her heart was still beating a little bit. Make that Rosalie. And then Esme was like conscious enough to give permission to become a vampire. We're gonna have Edward say something like, I don't know how Carlisle had the control not to kill the man. And Carlisle's gonna say something like, if I had spilled his blood and tasted it, it would have been impossible for me to save Esme. And then Edward is gonna at some point inform Bella that he tracked down Esme's ex-husband and killed him, and that's gonna highlight the difference between those two characters, Edward's vigilantism, etc. Esme is deeply kind and feels strongly for her family. She likes to fix up houses and do interior design. She volunteers at soup kitchens. Some of that is canon, some of that is fanon. Either way, it's not a new idea what I've just said. Like what I did with Emmett, giving him something to do by giving him an interpersonal relationship to matter, I'm gonna kind of do the similar thing with Esme. Instead of bridging gaps with the werewolves, she's gonna bridge gaps with the other vampires. Carlisle has friends by virtue of having lived long and been weird and memorable and strong-willed and admirable from the perspective of other vampires. Esme has friends because she has this quality about her that makes even people who wanted to fight her before kind of want to just like share a cup of tea and talk about stuff. Obviously vampires can't have tea, like a cup of blood. Share a cup of blood and talk about stuff. Remember in Avatar: The Last Airbender in the episode Tales of Boxing Say, where Iroh is about to be mugged and then he ends up teaching the mugger a better fighting stance and sitting down and talking to him about his dreams? That's basically a lot of what Esme is gonna be doing. For Esme, it's not so much gonna be a fixing people thing like it is with Iroh. It's more gonna be that people trust her despite themselves and end up divulging their plans and their sad pasts and basically saying more than they mean to just because she's so decent and personable. Like a villain will go up to her and they'll be trying to interact with her on a strictly tell your husband this message from me and the fact that I've made you the messenger is implicitly a threat on your well-being capacity, but all she has to do is just be like, oh, are you hurt? That looks like it hurts. And they'll like end up telling her their entire scheme. She probably won't convince them not to do the evil thing, but it will be a substantially longer conversation than they had planned for. And at some point now they've exchanged cell phone numbers with Esme and they're friends now. They're still gonna kill the Cullens, but Esme doesn't count. Esme's fun. This will be a running gag. Some villain will approach Esme while she's out volunteering or whatever, and she just completely disarms them with her personality. She goes back home calmly like, so the Volturi want to kill us, or something like that. That's not her accent, but yeah, vampires don't get a lot of socializing since there aren't a lot of them. Like most of them are living just either alone or in mated pairs or in tiny covens, so the prospect of like this stranger who they aren't romantically invested in just being caring and kind to them is gonna be like really disarming for them. And maybe some of them do develop a romantic interest in Esme, and that's like a villainous crush situation, but we don't need to go into that now. Rosalie, finally, main character Rosalie. Again, she's one of the 3 main characters. Her overall story is gonna be finding the meaning in her eternal life. Initially, that's gonna take the shape of childcare, because that's what she's been fixating on this whole time, is the fact that she can't have kids. That's the thing that she feels was taken away from her, so she's been like really zeroed in on that. Ultimately though, she's gonna discover that what she was missing wasn't literally children, but just a goal to care about and be invested in. When she was human, her next goal was to have a child, so now she's just so laser focused on the fact that she can't have a child that it's impacting her ability to be happy. Basically, before now, she was missing a want for the future. She was missing a goal, a passion to drive her forward into the fact that she's not going to die, at least not naturally. Maybe while she's babysitting one of the kids, she learns about a bad law with regards to how disabled people are treated, and she's gonna be like, that's terrible, and then she's gonna start doing petitions, and then she's gonna be like, wait, I think I care about something. Basically, where before her passion was children and she was just miserable because she lacked that, now her passion is making the world a better place while she's still alive. She's a really good mechanic in canon. She works on cars, and also canonically she's been to medical school because she and Edward are the only ones who have really good control with regards to human blood, and Carlisle needs to have medical school knowledge that is recent. Like, he can't just be going around with his 1800s understanding of medicine. So she and Edward are canonically the people who give Carlisle the updated information on medical discoveries and such. Medical practices. We're keeping those things. I think I'm gonna like really dig into the fact that Rosalie is the STEM person. She's gonna pick up more STEM skills like hacking. She's gonna be their hacker. She's the tech-savvy sibling, basically. This also helps her to team up with Jasper a fair amount in that he's the strategy guy, and he's the guy who can get them fake paperwork for stuff, and she's the hacker. I'm picturing her at a computer doing the TV hacker typing, and Jasper's kind of like leaning over from behind to read from the screen, with his hand on the back of the chair leaning over and like talking to her. They're siblings, and I like that they're siblings. She's indifferent to Bella as a person, but very resistant to the idea of pulling in a human who has a life ahead of her and making her a part of the family, basically stealing her human life and making her a vampire. And also she has a pretty haughty demeanor in general, and Bella is going to interpret it as dislike. Like, she's going to read dislike from Rosalie, even though it's going to become a running gag that characters will be like, Rosalie doesn't dislike you. Maybe I'm overusing the words running gag, but basically a lot of characters are going to repeatedly tell Bella that Rosalie doesn't dislike her, but she's still going to be like, no, she pretty clearly hates me. That's almost exactly the dynamic they have in the books, really. It's just that in the books we have Bella's perspective, and so we're meant to interpret Rosalie the way she does. She's always polite to Bella. Unlike in the books, we're really gonna build on that tension between them. I'm talking held gazes. I'm talking they both reach for something at the same time, and Bella quickly withdraws her hand, and Rosalie just kind of looks at her like, you have grazed the hand of a queen. I'm talking Rosalie asks Bella a question, and Bella is so startled at being addressed that she stumbles over her words in a recognizably flustered way. At some point, we do have to resolve the fact that Bella clearly has a crush on both Edward and Rosalie, but that's not here. That's not right now. We're not there yet. Leah and Rosalie are gonna start out with a sort of a mutual respect that will grow into a grudging friendship. Renesmee! I still maintain the name is fine, although I did read a Tumblr post that said that it was out of character for Bella to name her child that, and that I agree with. The Tumblr post suggested that she more likely would have named her child something like Elizabeth Rose, and I think that definitely does sound more like Bella, but the character's name is Renesmee, so I'm gonna keep with Renesmee. I'm getting rid of the mind of an adult aspect where it's like, ah yes, as soon as she was born, she had the full intelligence of an adult, because that's really creepy and weird and bad. Not bad necessarily, I just don't like it. It's not a bad idea, I just don't enjoy the idea. First of all, clarifying that she has the mind of an adult and having her act like a child makes her seem very manipulative. Like, the fact that she's still like hitting Jacob and stuff, it's like, okay, hold on. So you're a grown woman. You mentally, in your mind, you are a grown woman. You have enough situational awareness to be able to communicate your thoughts and needs. And yet you're just like hitting Jacob like, hey, do what I want. Like, no, if you need to be one thing, you need to be either a baby or mature, but we can't have both of those things at the same time because then we run into that problem. She's still gonna have a more advanced version of the capabilities she would have at that age. She knows her mother and she's able to communicate her thoughts, but she's still a baby. She's still a child. She still thinks and acts like a kid. She just has more knowledge and perceptiveness to draw from. This is where I might annoy some people, but let's do this if I haven't already. So her power is communication via touch. And the book says that she prefers to use it more than talking, even though she can talk. She can talk, but she prefers to just do the like touch your face and give you images thing. I'm tempted to say that maybe this version of the character can't talk. Maybe this character was born mute, so she uses her power to communicate with loved ones, and with strangers or people who can't know that she has those kinds of powers, she uses sign language. I just feel like that would be a good use of that character detail. If it needs an explanation, we could say it's because of her dramatic birth. Like, there was even canonically a part of the birth where the baby couldn't breathe as they were trying to get it out. And we could say like, oh, while she couldn't breathe, she tried to claw at her throat or something, but like, we don't have to give a canonical, we don't have to verbally give an explanation. She can just be mute. Half vampires in universe are largely considered the perfect being. They can eat human food or drink blood and they would be fine with either one. They smell good to vampires, but they don't smell appetizing. They're immortal, but they can sleep and eat pizza. Basically, it's the happy medium of everything. The idea of having a half vampire, which is considered the perfect being, and having her have a disability, I think that's good. I think that's a good message. It would surprise some of the characters and definitely the audience, but I think it's good to communicate. She doesn't need to be fixed. She just is a half vampire with a disability and it's fine. Your perfect being can have a disability. Similar to in canon, Nessie is going to be very social and always excited to meet new people. She sees the good in everyone and her family loves to hang out with her. Because Alice has no memory of being a human, a lot of the baby and child rearing stuff is going to kind of blindside her to a degree. Not to mention Alice can't see her future, so that's also like really off-putting and creepy to her. But she still loves Nessie. She loves dressing Nessie up in cute little clothes. She loves how happy Nessie gets when she buys her toys. Maybe one time Alice is watching Nessie and Nessie loses a tooth and Nessie's just like, is that supposed to happen? And Alice is like, I don't know. Maybe none of the other Cullens are reachable, so she has to call like Charlie or something, or like one of the werewolves. This might be stretching Alice's lack of knowledge about humans to slightly unbelievable degrees, but it's for rule of comedy, so it's fine. Nessie is gonna be closer to Rosalie and Esme than she is to her mother. Like, they're gonna parent her more than Bella does, but she is still close to Bella. Bella reads to her and she's there for her for the human stuff that the others might not remember as well. The vibe with Jasper is gonna be like, Jasper will give Nessie a piggyback ride while telling her that the world is a dangerous place and she needs to stay alert. And he probably like drills her on what to do in various emergency situations. Very cute, the two of them. The vibe with Emmett is he'll give her a piggyback ride really fast around the house just because it makes her laugh. With Jacob, once again, the relationship is completely unromantic, and it never will be romantic, because that's bad. He isn't clingy or obsessed. He's like the uncle who is passing by fast food on his way home, so he stops by fast food to get her some fast food because she likes fast food. Product placement. Stuff like that, though. They don't creepily monopolize each other's time. Charlie adores her. He's still learning sign language because humans don't pick up languages as fast as vampires do, and she can't use her power on him until season 6 because, you know, he's not allowed to know about the vampire stuff and the supernatural powers. Renee, when she finally does meet Nessie, is very surprised by her and very enchanted by her. If we want to go drama with it, we can do that thing The Good Place did, where we have Renee be really motherly towards Renesmee and Bella gets kind of hurt because it's like, if she was able to do that, then she just could have done it for me and just didn't. That was like, ouch, when The Good Place did it. It was like, oh man, Eleanor, I'm so sorry. So I want to not do that because it would hurt my feelings. So I'm gonna have Renee still be kind of flaky and irresponsible, but more attentive. So it's like, she's not neglectful, she's just irresponsible now. She'll be like, hey Nessie, let's do this, and Bella's like, no, that's dangerous, or something like that. We'll see. In this version, Nessie really likes Leah. Like, Leah is the cool aunt who acts like she doesn't want to spend time with you, but really does, where it's like, ah, beat it, squirt, something like that. Rosalie and Leah in this version were like the main helpers in giving birth to Nessie, so Bella and Rosalie and Leah form an unshakable bond there. Nessie likes to follow Leah around. She finds everything Leah says really funny, and Leah is jokingly, affectionately dismissive about it. It's like maybe she gives Nessie a leather jacket for Christmas, and it's too big on her because she's growing so fast. Also, further down the line, I think Nessie's gonna be gay because everyone wants Nessie to be gay. And that's everything! That's everybody! Let me know in the comments what you think about the characters, how you would characterize them, what you liked, what you maybe wanted to move away from. Like, no, I don't like the idea of changing that. If you feel that way, let me know. I'm curious. Despite the fact that I used a very adenoidal voice to portray you, I do care about your opinions. What are we to tell Prince Andrea? What do we tell your betrothed? Natasha, come here, kiss me. How are you to tell me? Greetings and salutations, beautiful humans. This is the Amity Elf here, and my necklace has the latch in the front. This video was supposed to be how I would reboot the other vampire characters, but in a manner characteristic of myself, I've gotten a little verbose with it, haven't I? So this video is actually going to be how I would reboot the Volturi. Everybody loves the Volturi, man. Those guys are great. Specifically, the Volturi members that I'm going to be doing characterization for now are Aro, Caius, Marcus, Jane, Alec, Heidi, Dimitri, Felix, Chelsea, and Sulpicia. I assure you, these are all canon names. The point where I start making up OCs is not in this video. If you're a diehard Twilight fan and you're like, I recognize all of those names, I know exactly who you're talking about, that's awesome. If you're a casual Twilight fan and you're like, okay, I know who Aro, Caius, and Marcus are, who are these, like, who's Chelsea? That's okay. If you're south of casual, hold on to me, little bird, I'm gonna get you through it. Basically, Aro, Caius, and Marcus are the leaders of the Volturi. They got 3 kings, and it's Aro, Caius, and Marcus.
Remarkable.
Canonically, they all have had mates, all female mates, because Stephanie Meyer, you know, she does not write gayness. All three of them have had female mates. Marcus's mate has died a long time ago. He's still real bummed about it. Understatement.
Let us be done with this.
Aro's mate is Sulpicia. Caius's mate is Athenadora. We do not learn any information about Athenadora and Sulpicia in the series other than the fact that they are Aro and Caius's mates, which means I've got some fertile land to make stuff up. It's great. Jane and Alec, they're twins and they're young vampires, but not so young that it's illegal because it is against the law to make child vampires, specifically like toddler vampires. They're like in their mid-teens. If you recall my first Twilight video, I did say that I fan cast them as McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard. They're basically the enforcement. They have powers that enable them to punish people. Dimitri and Felix are also very powerful to the Volturi. Dimitri tracks people. Felix is just big. Heidi's thing is that she brings in humans for them to eat. Chelsea's thing is that she helps recruit more people into the Volturi by breaking their bonds with other people and forming bonds with the Volturi. That is her power. That's a quick overview. Again, we're going to go into more detail when we get into the sections. I promise you it's going to be fine. Unlike with the humans and the Cullens, before we get to the characters themselves, we do have to have a section that says, when are we going to learn this stuff? When are we going to start to see this characterization pop up? At what point are we going to know these things about the characters? That's what I'm about to explain to you right now. For the leaders, so Aro, Caius, and Marcus, some of the characterization is going to be done in expository flashbacks in the first season. So, you know, the first season is Twilight, second season is New Moon, etc. In Twilight, we get passing mentions of the Volturi, kind of, but they don't really get explained in detail until New Moon. Since we have the opportunity to Lemony Snicket style retroactively pretend that we had set up for future events, we're going to retroactively pretend that we have set up for future events. And it does help that Rosalie is now a main character, so a significant amount of scenes are now going to be dedicated to the vampire point of view, so the Volturi is much more of an entity for them than it is for Bella, so we get more opportunities to talk about them. We're going to start describing and setting up the Volturi leaders in season 1 when the plot of Twilight is happening. From what we've established in season 1, we're going to build on that early in season 2 just to kind of refresh the audience, like, hey, remember those guys? Keep those in mind. They might be important later. For those of you who have watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, remember how right before Crossroads of Destiny in the previously on Avatar section, they had the, by the way, remember how if you get killed in the Avatar state, the Avatar ceases to exist? Food for thought. Make sure you keep that information in your back pocket for later. And then you're like, oh no, why are they reminding us of this? We're gonna start to get the Jane, Alec, Dimitri, and Felix characterization at the end of season 2, because you know that's when the confrontation with the Volturi actually happens. Bella goes there, so she meets them and we get to see them actually acting. Also a little bit of Heidi. So Jane, Alec, Dimitri, Felix, and Heidi are gonna start to get characterization at the end of season 2. This will be the first we learn of these guys because they have not been mentioned by Edward earlier. We're gonna pepper in the occasional Volturi scenes in seasons 3 and 4. We won't see the Volturi leaders in season 3 because I like to maintain that kind of mystery as to what they're up to. In season 4, I think it would be spookier if we don't see the kind of preparations the Volturis are making before the battle. The movie shows us the Volturi like in action, like they show us them executing the Cullens' allies and stuff. I think that it would be spookier if we just have the Cullens have lines where they say, we were expecting more people, the Volturi must be deterring people en route. My calls aren't getting through to so-and-so, etc. They're being waylaid, maybe even killed. Can we ask this of our friends? Etc. That kind of thing. Like just ominous vibes of like, hey, we were expecting more people. It was already a little dubious to think that we could make it with the group we expected, but if a lot of them aren't showing up, this is not great for us. But we are going to see the Volturi early in season 4. The latter half of season 4, they're dropping off just for the ominous vibes, but the beginning of season 4, we are going to see them. We're going to see them react to the news of Bella's changing and the news of her marrying Edward. As soon as we see the scene of Irina leaving from the Cullen house, it is radio silent from the Volturi. We don't even see Irina tell them, it is all in shadow from then on. We just know, oh wait, she told the Volturi. And then in the battle, it's a whole extended scene of them like interacting with the Cullens and each other, and it's great. Seasons 5 and 6 though are going to be the real Volturi characterization seasons. As I've said in previous videos, season 4 is where we end with book canon, and season 5 we get to just kind of go wild. In season 5, the Cullens are going to be bringing Renesmee by the Volturi to have checkups with them because they're like, okay, fine, she's not dangerous, but we still want to know how her growth is going, her progress. We want to study her since she's kind of a new species, not brand new, but she's within the first 10 of the new species, and we can't really get on the phone with Johan, so you're the guy. While this is happening in season 5, tensions are going to start building between the Volturi and the werewolves. In season 6, tensions are going to head up, and it's like we're actively kind of like fighting now. The conflict will have escalated to the point that now the werewolves and the Cullens are in hiding, and the allies of the Cullens. In season 6, the Cullens, the werewolves, and their allies are actively opposing the Volturi. It needn't come to a kind of like good versus evil battle, because I want to approach it with some degree of nuance, but you know. Now we can finally talk about the characters. You would think since Aro is like the main king of the Volturi. Like, he's the one all of the decisions are going through, really. You'd think that because of all of that, I would do him first, but I'm actually gonna do Caius first because I'm gonna be contrasting Aro with him in a minute. Caius in canon is the strictest of the kings. He's the one who's like, you gotta change Bella or you're breaking the law, we gotta kill you, etc. He's basically the bad cop to Aro's good cop because it's more or less implied, yeah, Aro wouldn't just let them go with breaking the law, but he gets to pretend to be like, oh, I'm so nice, brother, you want to kill them? Like, he gets to be the nice one because Caius is there going like, hey, they broke the law, we gotta kill him.
What do we do with you now?
She knows too much. She's a liability.
That's true.
Pretty much the extent of his characterization is that he's the one who's like, we gotta enforce the law. He doesn't even have a power, he's kind of just there to be mean so Aro can be nice. In this show, Caius is gonna be the one who is the most convinced of the Volturi's exceptionalism. By which I mean, to Caius, they are in fact the line between order and chaos. Their rules are the only things keeping vampire kind alive in Caius's mind. Early on in their rule, Caius just thought their laws were the most civilized way to go about doing things. Yeah, don't be messy, don't kill conspicuously, because that's gross and very uncool. Don't be undignified about your killing. It besmirches the name of vampire. Sure, humans are weak, but don't be tacky and gauche about it. Yeah, we could probably just corral humans into little farms and eat them at will, but then we don't get to see their little operas or whatever. And hey, if it came down to it, they could kill a lot of us, not all of us, but they could have a body count if they just like got a lot of fire. They could leave a dent. As they've ruled for longer and longer though, his attitude has changed because humans have become more advanced. In his lifetime or unlifetime, he has watched humans become powerful enough to actually cause extinction of vampires if they wanted to. If it came to a war between humans and vampires, vampires could take a lot of humans out, but humans would wipe them out because there aren't that many vampires. There are like rather few, and we have pretty intense weaponry now, and they're flammable. Now humans could wipe out vampires for sure instead of potentially. His attitude has become sterner. He fears humanity at large, and now any vampire who starts, breaking the law and getting too conspicuous with it, now you are trying to kill us. The Volturi's law of secrecy is vampires' only hope of survival. If you are violating that law, you're trying to get us all killed. We gotta kill you before you take the whole ship down. Natasha was not asleep. Maybe I've made him sound skittish and fearful, but let it be known, this fear manifests in a very hawkish way, very no-nonsense and violent and austere. Insert commentary about fear and violence and the interplay of power and fear to create violence. Canonically, Caius hates werewolves, which is why, as I mentioned in my first Twilight video, Breaking Dawn, the book, randomly announces out of nowhere that the werewolves we've been calling werewolves this whole time weren't actually werewolves, they're just wolf shapeshifters. They're shapeshifters who happen to have chosen wolf as their thing. Could have been anything, but it isn't. Ever. And maybe in the series at some point we're gonna have someone be like, actually, I think maybe I'm gonna transform into like a falcon or something. Here, I stand by the fact that we're not gonna change the terminology around wolves and werewolves and stuff in the 11th hour, but we will say they're a different kind of werewolf than the one he knew. Canonically, Caius hunted all of the real werewolves, and as far as anyone is concerned, there are basically none left. That sounds a lot like the G word, which maybe we want to move away from in this. Gonna move back from the G word because that would make the thing I'm about to say really hard to manage. Let's get that off the table. Instead, I will say that there was a war between the European werewolves and the Volturi-led vampires. Caius was a major player in that war. He fought against them, and ultimately, the European wolves lost. We're also gonna paint the loss of the European wolves as a tragedy, which Stephanie Meyer never really did. She was just like, oh, we killed those off anyway. Which, I mean, fine, it wasn't the focus of the scene. It was just there to hand-wave the idea that wolves and vampires are natural enemies, which wasn't even that much of a thing anyway. It's like internally she was going, oh man, I gotta explain why the Volturi aren't making a fuss over the fact that wolves and vampires are natural enemies. And I, as a young reader, was like, no, I didn't think the Volturi were gonna really have a problem with them. It seemed like the whole wolf-vampire rivalry was localized to the Greater Forks region, but turns out it had to be a whole thing, and we had to bring the G word into the mix. All of this to say, Caius is still gonna be terrified of werewolves, but he didn't directly contribute to them being extinct. And I'm saying this because I want him to have romantic tension with Leah. Not as a real, actual, they are going to be a couple ship, but I do want Caius to have a part tsundere, part yandere villainous crush on Leah. And she resents everything he stands for, obviously. Hear me out. Besides the obvious forbidden love vibes, and besides the fact that after all she's been through, Leah just kind of deserves to have someone be passionately in love with her, and you know how I love that yandere trope, man. I want someone high-ranking in the vampire government to be invested in Leah's well-being. I want this man pining. Those are kind of the two main reasons, but this is Twilight, so that's that's enough. After multiple seasons of having to watch Leah confront problems and be strong and stuff, it will be very satisfying to see, you know, she and the wolves are actively confronting the Volturi, they're actively antagonizing the Volturi, and Caius is like, okay, but we do need to keep Leah alive, don't harm her. Yes, we do have to triumph in this second war with the wolves, but once we do, and I cannot emphasize this enough, Leah does have to stay alive. She is very much leading the effort against us, but I'm gonna go ahead and keep her alive after the war is over, and you can't ask questions about it. Really, the only ones in a position to question him would be Aro and Marcus, and Aro just wants to keep control over Caius, so as long as Caius doesn't let her influence him, Aro doesn't care, and Marcus doesn't care about anything. For this dynamic, I basically want to take everything that was interesting and fun about Reylo from Star Wars, and please keep hearing me out. I want to take everything that was interesting and fun about them and then don't ruin it. Like, get rid of everything that was annoying and bad. So yes, romantic tension between a leader of the villains and a leader of the rebels. No to wobifying the white leader of the villains and then treating the black character who defected from the villains because he couldn't bear to hurt innocent people as a punchline, never writing him in a complex way, treating his pain like a joke instead of an actual pain that matters for a character. Caius and Leah are gonna first interact in season 4 when the events of Breaking Dawn are happening. In the climax of Breaking Dawn, there is a moment where Edward is standing with Aro on the Volturi side so that Aro can read him, and Bella is told to bring Renesmee over so that Aro can, you know, see for himself, like, oh, she's a hybrid, let me check her out. And what Bella does is she goes, okay, Emmett, Jacob, come with me. She chooses Jacob because he imprinted on Renesmee so he would hate to be left behind. She chooses Emmett because Emmett just loves the drama. Basically, she's like, Emmett, I know that you're an agent of chaos and I want to indulge that, come on in. Those are some very solid reasons, especially when you take the child grooming out of the Jacob-Renesmee relationship, and I do love that Emmett's just like, man, I want to be in the room where it happens. But I think for the sake of the 3 main characters being who they are, I am gonna instead say that she brings Rosalie and Leah with her, just so like we get the trailer shot of Bella, Rosalie, and Leah walking forward towards the Volturi. That is the trailer for the season finale, or the 2-part season finale, probably 2-part season finale. Next week. Shot of them walking up together, shot of like someone's hand touching Aro's, we don't know whose because it's the camera angle. I need to stop developing this. Moving on. Leah's already in human form and clothed. When she walks up with Bella and Rosalie, Caius starts kind of eyeing her and making skeptical comments about werewolves. She's snarking at him in return and he is visibly smitten. He's visibly very into her already. Partially because I don't want it to seem like between seasons the fan works that have inevitably come of them have influenced the writing. Oh yeah, they have an interaction and then there's fan fiction about them and then the writers decided to make them a couple. No, it was in the plans the whole time. Leah very specifically does not like vampires who eat people. That's kind of a thing she has, that she doesn't like murder. So she is not taking an interest in Caius in return. He's taking interest in her. I think that's really where the Reylo ship fell off for me, is when Reylo started being like, you know what, I think I like you too, guy who's destroying planets and stuff. I think for me at least, the best reaction that a character in this position could have is disinterest, not even hatred. I don't just dislike that Rey's reaction to I kill people because I had a sad event happen in my past is, oh no, I had no idea you had a reason. I also dislike that her overall reaction to him being a murderer is such an active anger that it seems to distinguish him in a way. You don't have to be special to murder someone, you just have to not murder someone, which I guess could be said about anything. Like I could make a sentence where I say, you don't have to be special to win a Nobel Prize, you just have to not win a Nobel Prize, which means that I didn't make an argument just now, I just kind of said a belief of mine, which is that murder isn't hard, interesting, or cool. I just feel like having Rey, who grew up around cruelty and violence, be super mad and like surprised that Kylo Ren murdered feels more like an audience surrogate thing than an in-character thing. I'm just using it as an example though. This is an example of the kind of dynamic I want Leah to have with Caius. Being a murderer isn't an interesting character trait. Leah regards Caius as an adversary, not as like a special enemy or a villain. Other than on a situational basis, he's not worth her time to think about. He's not worth her energy to hate. He's just a guy who sucks and needs to be overthrown in her mind. It doesn't occur to her that Caius has taken a particular interest in her until after the confrontation with the Volturi, at which point Edward just kind of tells her that he did. When the wolves and the Volturi start to have conflict in season 5, concurrent with Renesmee having to go to the Volturi for checkups, that's also when Leah, Sam, and Jacob are gonna go to the Volturi to kind of speak to the Volturi leaders and try to engender peace, try to resolve their difference in regard for human life peacefully. The wolves have a treaty with the Cullens. Now every vampire knows about them, so they need to form a treaty with the Volturi so that it's not like, hey, we gotta kill those guys, right? They're talking to the Volturi about that. The Volturi are like, hey, it's kind of cool how you can kill us really easily. Could we maybe get you in here as some of our employees. In Breaking Dawn, they mention this idea. They phrase it as guard dogs, and I kind of want to remove that idea. I'd like to dehumanize the wolves less than we do in the books, if you can imagine. But anyway, season 5 is where the most Leah and Caius interactions happen. At some point, there's a contrived reason for Leah and Caius to be alone. Caius, being part tsundere, part yandere, is going to start needling Leah about Sam. He's gonna say something along the lines of like, oh, Marcus said that there's some unresolved feelings there. Of course, he's not gonna talk like that. He's gonna talk like he's ancient. Marcus saw unresolved feelings between Leah and Sam on Leah's end, not on Sam's end. Sam, it is cut off completely because the imprint bond was like, oh, guess I don't feel anything for you anymore, bye. But Leah still has some of the feeling. She's not trying to get back together with him, but she still feels something for what they used to have because they were going to get married. She had created in her mind a future with him. Caius is gonna needle her about that. It's not gonna go as intended. Leah at some point is also gonna say something along the lines of, your eyes are awfully red. You must have eaten someone earlier today. You know, in a judgmental way of like, your eyes are awfully red. You must have eaten someone earlier today. Something like that, I don't know. Leave it up to the actor. Those of you who listened to what I said earlier in the video may now be thinking, hey, what about Athenadora, who is Caius's mate? And I'm just kind of getting rid of her. She just doesn't exist because she barely existed in the books anyway, and I want to make this a thing. Erasing both her and Sulpicia would do nothing to change the story, but I'm not gonna erase Sulpicia, just her. If you're invested in Athenadora, I'm sorry. And I don't know how, but sorry. Caius and Leah, I guess it'd be called Kaya, but yeah, Kaya would be a ship people judge you for. I'm gonna give Leah other nicer people who like her, but I think some Caius-Leah tension would be some fun spice. I have not seen Vampire Diaries, but I think that it would have some Claraline or Clonny vibes. Now for Aro. Aro in canon is the leader who's kind of sweet and passive-aggressive.
Bella is alive after all. Isn't that wonderful?
He finds things fascinating and he wants to get power from anything, which is why he finds things fascinating. He'll be like, oh, that's a cool power. Can I use that? Unlike Caius, he has a power where he can touch your hand and learn everything you've ever thought. He can read your mind to such a degree he knows every thought you've ever had with one touch. That's his deal in canon. In this show, however, okay, keep in your head what I said about Caius's view of them being like the only line between order and chaos and vampire destruction, etc. Aro always assumes a fanciful tone, but he takes a more cynical view to their rule than Caius does. From Aro's perspective, anyone can rule. Maybe some people would rule better than others. Maybe this guy's reign would get everybody killed. Maybe this guy's reign would make everything better. Whatever. The biggest deal for him is that he wants to be the one in power. That being said, he also has the most realistic and positive view of the Cullens out of the Volturi. Caius sees the Cullens as a threat to Volturi power because they have numbers as far as family goes and they have influence as far as allies go. Aro sees the Cullens as a long-term positive. Vampires by nature don't like rules, so having a vampire government at all is kind of making a lot of them uncomfortable because it's like, I want to just like kill a lot of people though is my thing. I want to just go to a town and start just eating people. And you guys are saying I have to like hide and like wait in an alleyway and get this one guy and pretend that he broke his neck and fell off a ladder or something. I have to go through all these steps when I could just like walk into a doggone Macy's and start getting into some necks. That's what you're saying to me, Volturi? I gotta be secretive? Basically, a lot of vampires don't like having any limits at all on how many people they can eat and how and under what circumstances. The fact that the Cullens are the second highest populated group of vampires and the second most influential group of vampires, and they have a way stricter policy with regards to eating people, is really good for the Volturi. It means that a majority of vampires have an incentive to support the Volturi. If we don't support the Volturi, what if the Volturi falls, the Cullens move into the power vacuum, and they make it against the law to eat people? What if we have to eat animals? Animals are gross. Basically, Aro uses the Cullens to create partisanship, despite the fact that the Cullens aren't actually vying for power. By letting them be powerful enough to worry the other vampires, but knowing that they won't actually challenge him, Aro is basically saying, here are your options. The people who say just don't be too obvious about eating what you like to eat, or the people who are saying you have to eat garbage. Because of this, he doesn't actually mind the Cullens gaining new members. Caius minds, Aro doesn't. But if the Cullens do start to challenge his authority, Aro does not play around. Aro has said in so many words, not in canon, but in the universe of the show, that he won't kill Carlisle, but he has no problem killing his family. He will kill every single other Cullen except for Carlisle. He likes Carlisle, but he'll kill all his family and he doesn't really care about that. Amusingly, there are members of the Volturi who have the same policy, but for Esme, as I mentioned in the Cullens video. I actually do want to emphasize this aspect of Aro though, that there are people he cares about that he actually won't hurt. I think that Meyer very specifically didn't want him to have that because she made it canon that he killed his sister. I think the vibe she was going for was, hey, Aro is evil, he will kill anybody to get an advantage. I want to add the tiniest sliver of nuance to that, like just a little. The dissonance is fun, I like the dissonance, but I think I like it more if instead of being polite but indiscriminately murderous, he's gonna be polite but discriminately murderous. And he treats everyone with the same kind of smiley, like, oh, I love this guy. He's that way with everyone, so you can't tell who's on his will kill list and who's on his won't kill list. And you would think that they're all the same level, but the cutoff is just so distinct. He would feel no remorse if he killed someone in the will kill group. He would perform remorse like, oh, such a pity, but he wouldn't actually like stress about it. He wouldn't actually like lose, not sleep over it. He would feel no remorse if he killed someone in the will kill group, and it wouldn't even cross his mind to kill someone in the won't kill group. He killed his sister Didomi, and maybe it's more complex if he feels remorse for killing his sister, but I kind of like it if the vibe is more like, yes, I love Didomi with all my heart, but she was in the way, so had to I loved her. Unfortunately, I did have to kill her, and I feel nothing about that. I loved her for a time, and now she's gone. Who's to say who murdered Didomi? The internet says it's pronounced Didim. I've been pronouncing it Didomi, which sounds like it belongs in a dirty joke about Mario. Basically, instead of going, his skewed mind will kill anyone he loves, I'm instead gonna go, he has an internal logic that just none of us are privy to. There is a definite system within his mind about who it's okay to kill and who it isn't. None of us have access to that logic. That's largely why Marcus still doesn't know that he killed Didim. I did it right, yay. By the way, Didim was Marcus's mate, she's the one who died, and that's why he's so sad. Marcus still doesn't know that Aro is the one who killed Didim, and that's because he knows from his power sensing relationships, he knows that Aro loved Didim as much as he loves other people he won't kill. He loved her just as much as he loves someone like Carlisle, if not more, and he won't kill Carlisle, so of course he wouldn't kill Didim. Aro's kind of a more sinister reflection of Carlisle. The fact that he likes to study new things, the fact that he's collecting people. One aspect of his character that I want to hit really hard, or perhaps invent, is that he's a master manipulator. Aro is very skilled at using people's past experiences to get them to trust him. Knowing every thought you ever had isn't only useful for knowing if you've committed a crime against the Volturi or something. It's also really useful for knowing your vulnerabilities, opinions, and things like that, and then phrasing his arguments in a way that seem appealing to you. No matter what argument he's making, he can phrase it in a way that sounds very enticing since he knows what you already agree with. Kind of like how TERFs use the language of feminism to oppress the already oppressed. Aro isn't a TERF though. Watching Aro manipulate someone will be a conflicting experience if you're an audience member who reacts to media the way I do. We will on some level hate him and hate what he's doing, but a part of us will be going, ooh, that was well done, that was good, that was a smart angle to use, man, he nailed that one. Ooh, yep, that'll do it, yeah, good job. Honestly, if we could get Michael Sheen in again for Aro, I wouldn't be mad at it, even though that, again, copyright, but also, he was very fun to watch, you know? As I kind of hinted at earlier, Sulpicia is gonna be a more prominent character than she was in the books, so you might think that as a result of that, I would tone down the fact that Aro is flirty with absolutely everyone around him, but that is not going to be the case. I am going to go ahead and keep the fact that Aro is kind of flirtatious and like grabby and like creepy and stuff. I like it, we're keeping it. Oh no, what have I done? I don't want this to be a significantly shorter section than the Caius section, but that is pretty much all I have for Aro. That's kind of all you need. His relationship with Sulpicia is gonna be further explained in the Sulpicia section. Now for Marcus.
What joy.
Marcus is the third and final king of the Volturi. Marcus is the least talkative and the least active in the running of the Volturi. He has an apathetic demeanor, a depressed demeanor, and his power is that he can see the relationships between people. He can like sense the dimensions of people's relationships. Aro finds this power very useful to him, so he really needs to keep Marcus around. The reason Aro killed his own sister Didim is because as Marcus's mate, she was starting to draw Marcus away, and it's like, haha, no, Marcus needs to stay with me and be king of the Volturi, so you're gonna have to die, bye. Because vampire mating is such an intense bond, her having died has really just plunged him into like unimaginable grief. Nothing matters to him anymore. As for this show though, we're not gonna be playing Marcus for laughs the way the movie did. We're not playing him for angst either, exactly, but we're not going for the same vibe as the movies. In the movies, it's never really explained that he's going through incomparable loss, and that's why he's not really invested in the drama. That's not to say the movies did a bad job, because they didn't mention that they got to make the choice to use Marcus as a fun running gag. Like, this guy doesn't care about anything. He's so old and tired. He's like so sick of these two other leaders of the Volturi. I do enjoy movie Marcus and how over it he is, especially when he's dryly cutting through Aro's sweet facades.
What do we do with you now?
You already know what you're going to do, Aro.
There's one deleted scene that I love where Aro has the guards kill a human messenger for like a small trivial offense.
Valentina has brought us something.
She should not have interrupted.
She's new.
Aren't they all?
The lady walks in and Aro's like, "Oh, you're here." And Caius is like, "She should not have interrupted." And I love the way he delivers that line. And Aro's like, "She's new," and kind of like a, "Oh, don't be mean." And then Marcus is like, "Aren't they all?" And I love that. Those 3 lines in succession are just like the perfect character snapshot for the movie's interpretation of the characters, where Caius is the one who's like, "You broke a rule, we gotta kill ya." And Aro's like, "No, we can't do that." And Marcus is just like, "You've killed all of them. There's a pile of bodies over there. They're all new. It's everybody's first day. No one's lasting long in this job. Can we stop with the pretense? My wife died centuries ago. I'm so tired. Get me out of here. Can I take the mic off? I want to walk off set." I find that very fun to watch, but in this show, what I'm going for is that Marcus is just existing in a whole other genre. The rest of the characters are on the Twilight show. Marcus is stuck on a show whose main character died in the pilot season. There's no script, no writers, no directors, and he just has to keep making episodes as a formality. In any given Volturi scene, he's staring at a wall or out a window. If he interjects anything at all into the conversation they're having, it's not really relevant. It's just a vaguely poetic bit of nonsense, riffing on a word they've recently used, and Aro manages to spin it into something profound and relevant. The imaginary fandom for this imaginary show gets to wonder, oh, was Marcus actually trying to say that thing that Aro just said, or was he just like saying stuff, and Aro's making up interpretations to keep him in the loop and make it seem like he's involved. Also, we are going to show why Aro keeps Marcus around, because we're going to show Marcus using his power and being useful. While Marcus is just like staring at a wall, pining for someone centuries dead, Aro can just go, "Hey Marcus, what are your insights into the happy couple?" Marcus turns a just dead, uninterested gaze on Edward and Bella and delivers the most comprehensive breakdown of the dynamic between them and everyone in their lives. It's going to be spooky how accurate and how deadpan he is, and it's going to be unsettling that he knows that much and he just does not care. He understands intimately how they feel about their family and about each other. He knows the depths of their soul almost, and he just feels nothing about it. All of the other characters get to feel all these things for the people around them, even if it's hatred or manipulation. They get to manipulation isn't a feeling. And Marcus is so wrung out that he can't only not share in those feelings, he can't only not sympathize with those feelings, he can't even envy those feelings. He can't even want to feel something anymore. But again, the show isn't going to be playing this for angst, so it's not going to be like a delved into thing. It's just going to be kind of happening in the background. Like I said, he's on his own show. When we see him, he is like on his own show. He is very much checked out. In season 6 though, when the Cullens, as I mentioned in the human video, flee to Renee's house, Marcus will be the one to think of the fact that they might have gone there, because Marcus was the only member of the Volturi who was able to get any read on Bella. Marcus is the only member of the Volturi who was able to discern anything about Bella's internal life, because his power does work on Bella, the same way Jasper's power works on Bella. It's more on an emotional level than a mental level, so it works. So he's the first one to think of, oh, she might have gone to her mom's house. Of course, because it's Marcus, instead of just telling the other kings this, he'll say a little like poetic version of it that's kind of vague and open to interpretation. And Aro's gonna assume that he's doing the thing he always does, and he's gonna just kind of make up a wild interpretation of it. It's relevant to what they're talking about, but it's just not what he was saying. And at that point, Marcus finally just goes, "No, I'm saying you forgot about her mother." And this is gonna be the first time Marcus directly and willingly contributes like this. Usually he's just checked out until he says something weird or Aro tells him to use his power, but this time he actively makes a suggestion and actively clarifies what he means when Aro misunderstands. I like the thought of letting him ruin things for the heroes a little bit here. Before this, he was barely a villain at all. He was really just kind of a tag-along accessory to the villains, maybe allowing some viewers to hope that he'll side with the Cullens when it comes down to it. This way we get to be like, no, Marcus figured it out and he did rat on them. Given the choice to withhold information, he did rat them out. Marcus is still one of the leaders of the Volturi and he is still a danger to them. Aro's gonna say something like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And Marcus is gonna be like, I know, it was growing tedious. Maybe in a less mean way. And later on, we could have him help the Cullens out. Kind of keep them guessing, you know, keep the audience guessing as to where Marcus stands on all of this. I find it fun to have this guy haplessly mourning for 4 or 5 seasons. Overall, not a threat to the good guys, just quiet and pitiable. And then to just say, don't get it twisted, he's not your friend. The fact that he doesn't care about anything is not an asset to you. Now for Jane. Jane is one of the twins. She has a torture power. She can look at you and make you feel as if you are burning alive.
Pain.
She can only do it on one person at a time, and she really loves doing it. It's a mental power, so it doesn't work on Bella because Bella blocks all mental powers. That's all of the canon stuff out of the way. We're keeping how sadistic she is because younger me loved that about her, and I do too. For this, I'm gonna say that she's gonna be kind of a cross between Rhoda from the 1956 version of the Bad Seed.
What did I do if you know so much? You figured out something that never happened. You know, I think you're a very silly man. I had hit him with the shoes. What else could I do?
You realize that you murdered him?
But it was his fault. If he gave me the medal like I told him to, I wouldn't have hit him.
And Emma from the 2018 version of the Bad Seed.
What would you give me for a basket of hugs?
A basket of kisses. A basket of kisses. I didn't mean to hurt him. He always over-exaggerated. I won't do it again. Or kicked her. She fell down the stairs. I didn't do anything wrong. She's the adult. She should have protected herself better.
Both of these characters kill people. Both of them go, it wasn't my fault, but in different tones. Rhoda is very much like a prissy girly girl, formal, wears a fancy dress to a school picnic. She's prissy and formal, and there's an entitlement spoiledness to it. Emma from the 2018 version of the Bad Seed has more of a brooding intellectual side than Rhoda. You can see that she is like stoic and stone-faced, so I'm kind of gonna mix both of those vibes for Jane. Jane loves her power and she loves using her power. It makes her happy. The canonical backstory of Jane is that she and her brother Alec were considered witches at the time when they were alive as humans, and they were burned at the stake. She already, I guess, had some kind of power before, that's why she was considered a witch, but her specific power, it's implied that she is giving the feeling that she had upon her death, she is giving that feeling to other people in their minds. At the last minute before she would have perished, Aro came in and saved her, like, boy, I would love to collect 2 witch children who can be my enforcers, and that's what happened. I'm bringing this up to say, in this show that I'm making, we're gonna add a degree of jumpiness to her. There is still trauma from having been burnt at the stake, and that trauma can't go away because she can't grow, because vampirism stops growing. Maybe at some point someone taps Jane on the shoulder and she flinches, wheels around, and like just pains them right away. I keep doing hand gestures. None of these vampire powers come with anyone doing this. No one's doing this at all. I think in the show, because like I said, we built on Aro is a master manipulator, we're gonna kind of go all in on the idea that he is very much a father figure, a doting father figure to Jane and Alec. Kind of as a foil to Carlisle, because Carlisle adopts lost souls, and so does Aro. We're gonna see him manipulating them in ways that Carlisle never would. Getting to it later. That being said, Jane and Alec get away with pretty much everything. They get gifts from Aro all the time, and Jane is gonna act like a stereotypical spoiled daughter, not in a full-on Veruca Salt way, or at least not in a 1971 Veruca Salt way. Maybe a touch, like the slightest drop of 2005 Veruca Salt. She never directs anger towards Aro. Aro is always in charge. But Jane acts sweet, she gives hugs, and she is shocked when she doesn't get her way. She'll pain blast other people in the fallout for that kind of thing. She walks away and then just like looks real hard at one guy and he just crumples to the floor. And Aro's just like, He sees her do this, but he's like, sure, whatever, I don't care. Her overall disposition when not in Aro's presence is one of aloofness and amusement. Basically, take Jane from the movie, but dial up the fact that she derives glee from knowing that she could torture anyone at any time and enjoys doing that. She's powerful and she's smug about it. Maybe costume-wise, she wears the same dark robes as the rest of the Volturi, but maybe she has kind of petticoat vibes to hers. I'm worried I'm describing her like a haunted doll. In fact, maybe scrap the petticoat thing. Oh, another thing, when she pains people, they're gonna scream. I was very annoyed that the movie just had them contort silently. Why? Let them scream, they're burning alive. If she is setting them ablaze with pain, in their minds they are on fire, then they're not just gonna contort their little bodies and make like, not even really much of a pain face, just kind of like, no, dude, you're on fire. Yell at me. Yell. Beg for it to stop. Seeing her smile peacefully and like happily while they're doing that will be more dissonant than if they're just stretching real hard. Now for Alec. Cool. Anyway, Alec in canon, he was burned at the stake along with his sister, but the power he developed from it was the ability to take away someone's senses. So their sense of touch, sight, smell, taste, all of the senses that you have, he can just like remove them. You are in a void and you can't feel or smell or anything. The implication being that he developed that power because he knew that his sister was burning alive and he was like, man, I wish I could take that pain away from her. And we're not whoopifying him though, by the way. Maybe the face I just made makes it seem like I'm gonna whoopify him, but I am not. Not entirely anyway. He's gonna, like a jerk whoopie. Like one of those jerk whoopies. Both the Jane and Alec are gonna be jerk whoopies. Let's let Alec have fun too. He's gonna be as sadistic as his sister in the show. We didn't get very much of that in the books. He wasn't really enjoying himself too much in the books or the movies. We're gonna make Alec as sadistic as his sister. Jane and Alec are gonna always be together, but you might not see him as quickly as you see her. Sometimes they're just walking together normally, but sometimes he's like lurking in the shadows. One hobby that they do together is that they'll corner whatever low-ranking Volturi member they find, and Alec will cut off their senses and Jane will pain them, which means they don't have any senses, they're floating in a void, can't feel anything, but they can feel pain exclusively. It makes Jane and Alec feel powerful to do that, and the reactions amuse them. The first time we, the viewers, see Alec smile will be when he's laughing at this. Usually he's pretty stoic, but like when he does this, he's just like, ha ha ha, he's laughing along with his sister. This is basically a regular Volturi hazing ritual, is that they do this. If the person gets up and goes like, hey, Jane and Alec just like cornered me and tortured me real bad, pretty much anyone in the Volturi would respond, yeah, they do that sometimes. There's not really many people that outrank them. There's not many people with the power to go to Aro and be like, hey, Jane and Alec do this, and have Aro go, hey, Jane and Alec, don't do that to them anymore. Basically, anyone who ranks below Jane and Alec in the Volturi hierarchy are toys. Alec's relationship with Aro is going to kind of parallel and contrast Jasper's relationship with Carlisle. As far as, you know, craving approval goes, Jasper, though, is still going to be very much self-determined, despite how he feels about Carlisle and like wanting his approval. Jasper still is very much self-determined, whereas Alec does whatever Aro says or wants. If he ever does have any reservations about Aro's orders, Aro will absolutely emotionally manipulate him. Aro will emotionally manipulate Jane too. He will do it with a smile on his face. Aro is pretty much the only one who either of them are vulnerable with except each other, and that is by his own design. He will use that. Of course, within the timeline of the show, there's room for them to develop connections with other people, but as far as the status quo is concerned, Alec is impishly dismissive towards anyone other than Aro and his sister. With Jane, he is protective, hence his power. With Aro, there's a lot of "are you mad at me" vibes. The slightest hint of negative feedback from Aro just destroys him. People will whoopify Alec and Jane in the imaginary fandom for this imaginary show. There will be so much fan fiction of them getting adopted by various good characters or even morally dubious characters who just wouldn't hurt them. Carlisle and Esme adopt Jane and Alec fan fiction. Rosalie and Emmett adopt Jane and Alec fan fiction. Leah adopts Jane and Alec fan fiction. Side note, I gotta write some fan fiction real quick. I'm sure some of that already exists, but this show would for sure exacerbate it. Now for Dimitri! Canonically, pretty much the only trait Dimitri has is that he's a really good tracker. I guess the way it works is that like a person's mind leaves an imprint that he can follow. It's basically just a way for Bella to be immune to his tracking power without expanding the scope of her shield past mind powers. It doesn't seem like it makes too much sense that his tracking is mind-based, but his tracking is in fact mind-based, so his whole thing is like, oh, he can track someone to anywhere in the world. He is the best tracker there is. He can find anyone anywhere so long as he's been around them once. That's all canon. He can't find Bella because, again, mind power doesn't work on Bella. In this show, I'm gonna say he's a bit of a big shot about it. He's in the same tier as Jane and Alec as far as being indispensable and knowing it, but he doesn't have the same parental hang-ups with Aro, so when we first see him, he is just all hotshot, can't touch this energy. Not to the point of disrespecting the leadership, because again, Aro will never allow a situation where he is not on top, but he will be very annoying to everyone else. Maybe he has like annoying big brother or young uncle vibes towards Jane and Alec because he is probably one of the few people who like if Jane tried to pain Dimitri could say, hey Aro, she did that, and Aro would be like, hey Jane, don't do that. So they're not allowed to hurt Dimitri. Like, you know how I said in my first Twilight video that I wanted to make the Cullens feel more like an actual family that loves each other and not a group of people situationally bound who don't actually like each other very much at all and are willing to attack each other over regular conflicts. Basically, that's how the books went with the Cullens. They're basically mated pairs who hang out together, and Alice and Edward are friends. Yeah, so I'm gonna take the book characterization of the Cullens and kind of put all of that onto the relationship between Dimitri and the twins. That's basically where they are. Okay, we hang out together and we exchange dialogue. We're not really like friends, but we also can't hurt each other without causing significant changes to our way of life. Because Dimitri has this big shot energy, he will occasionally get very close to the line with regards to annoying Jane and Alec, and Jane and Alec will get very close to the line with regards to threatening him, but they'll never quite cross the line. Because Dimitri is the tracker, he's also the one who often gets sent to threaten people. So if you think back to the Cullens video, which of course you watched a few minutes or hours ago in preparation for this one, and I appreciate you doing that, Dimitri is often the one who will be confronting Esme. I mentioned that Esme is going to get confronted on behalf of whatever the threat is recently, saying, hey, tell Carlisle this from the Volturi, or tell Carlisle this from whoever. Yeah, in this case, when it's the Volturi, Dimitri will be the one delivering the threats. And he's gonna be one of the ones who falls for her kindness over this. Yeah, baby, we got another villainous crush locked and loaded. I don't like this affect I'm doing. It's not just Caius and Leah, it's not just amicable exes Aro and Carlisle. Dimitri and Esme will have more Bankai vibes. Again, I haven't seen Vampire Diaries. What I'm saying is that he's gonna be a more playful, arrogant yandere who will become remorseful later. He's not going to side with the Cullens though. For a while, Aro is going to use Dimitri's infatuation with Esme to convince him that confronting the Cullens is the right move. But eventually, Dimitri's gonna figure out that Aro isn't going to kill Carlisle. There's no situation where Carlisle lives and Dimitri walks out of this with Esme. At that point, his fondness for her does threaten his loyalty to the Volturi, so Aro's gonna call in Chelsea to go ahead and sever that bond. Chelsea's gonna sever his feelings for Esme with her power. This will hurt fans of the ship. They will be very angry at me personally, and that's valid, because that sucks. That's a bad way to end a ship, and I'm very sorry, but just, you know, character-wise, it makes the most sense to me. Now for Felix. Felix's whole thing in canon is that he's big and strong and a physical threat, and Emmett really wants to wrestle him. For the show, we really don't have to do that much more with him. His role can still be the guy whose role in the Volturi is to be big and scary. In contrast to Emmett's strong and jovial energy, I want Felix to be more the strong and silent type. He doesn't talk or laugh or emote, he is just doing his job. This makes it even better on the rare occasions where we break this rule by having him say something or laugh. I feel like a lot could be ruined by the premise of a thing happens, and then the strong silent character suddenly laughs. Like, I feel like that could be a pretty cheap joke if we don't carry it out correctly. We're gonna treat him with more quiet dignity than the movies did. He never gets pained by Jane like he does in the movie. The fact that he doesn't get pained by Jane isn't even just a matter of, oh, his rank in the Volturi is high, because I don't think his rank in the Volturi would be too high. There are a lot of big, strong guys. Even if there aren't a lot of big, strong vampires, there are a lot of big, strong guys you could turn into a vampire if you wanted to. He works a lot with the high-ranking people, but like, he's not indispensable. He just doesn't get hurt by anyone because he doesn't really provoke anyone or have that much of a presence as to be interesting to someone who is sadistic. Like, I could see an angle from which maybe Jane and Alec look at him like, oh, he's so strong, it would make us really cool if we could take him down, but they just kind of don't feel like doing that. They'd rather torture pathetic people because they have more fun reactions. So yeah, like I said, that's all there is to Felix. I'm not developing Felix too much. Now for Chelsea. Chelsea is not really seen in the series. Like, we don't hear from Chelsea, we just know of Chelsea. She can cut your feelings for those around you or create some feelings for someone else. I believe that doesn't apply to mate bonds, because I believe there is a line from Edward or someone that's like, oh yeah, Chelsea can't break what we have, so she would have to get both of us. There's a very popular Twilight fanfiction called Luminosity with a sequel called Radiance, both of which I have read, that interprets Chelsea as a control freak who is obsessed with having everybody around her love her. She needs everyone to love her, and that's why her power is the way that it is because like she just needs to create these feelings, create love for her in other people. It makes her frustrated when there are people around her who don't love her and she has to fix it. That's a very cool spin on the character, but of course I'm not going to use that. I have to go a different way with it just by virtue of that interpretation existing. Here, Chelsea is gonna be basically the living embodiment of your fear that your friends secretly hate you. Instead of the like externally perky, internally turbulent version of Chelsea from Luminosity, this Chelsea is gonna be more like a combination of a siren and sadness from inside out. Her demeanor is kind of mousy and needy. Watching her use her power on someone is going to be unsettling and fun. Very much psychological thriller type stuff. It's gonna be very much like, they don't care about you. They never have. Don't reach out. They don't care. You don't even care. She's not saying that with her mouth. She's looking at you, and there's an audio overlay of those kinds of lines whispering in the background. And then there will be a much louder sound of just scissors closing. Like the fates have cut your lifeline, but on a relationship level. And then it'll just be silence after that. I love that. Another part of her power is that she can craft bonds between people. We're not gonna emphasize that part as hard because I like the spin I've given Aro where he's charismatic and manipulative enough to draw people in on his own. When Chelsea enters a scene, there will be a feeling of dread. It is like an executioner has walked into the room. Except instead of killing people, she kills the love you feel for people. We won't see a lot of her, but when she walks in the room, your heart will skip a beat in a bad way because you're like, oh no, my ship, no. Is she about to ruin my ship? Yep, she ruined my ship. Thanks, Chelsea. One last thing, and this is pretty important. Chelsea can build or sever bonds, but she can't see relationships in the way that Marcus can. I don't right now have a way in which that is relevant, but it is something to bring up. She can't see relationships, she can only manipulate them. Sulpicia, Aro's mate. That's all we know about her, so I don't have to say too much about canon. I know that in the Twilight Gender Bent AU that Stephanie Meyer published, Sulpicia takes Aro's place as the head of the Volturi, and Athenadora takes Caius's place, and Marcus is still Marcus. I think that's true, right? I did not read that. Sulpicia doesn't do anything in the series, and honestly, she isn't gonna do much here either, but she will be present and she will have a personality. I think the best way to make her interesting without actually giving her anything to do is to make her mysterious and a little confusing. So I want her to seem really nice. Not just nice in the way that Aro is nice, I want her to seem genuinely caring and innocent. Maybe the first time we see her, she's taking care of a baby bird that's like fallen out of the nest and she's caring for it in her own home. We see her caring for something and we largely get the impression, oh wow, she's genuinely a caring person. I want the viewer to look at Sulpicia and be like, she must not know that Aro's evil. She seems like she either couldn't handle it or wouldn't tolerate it if she knew that the love of her life is killing people, so surely she doesn't. Even though she has red eyes, I want part of your mind to be sitting there rationalizing how she can live on a diet of human blood without knowing that she's hurting anyone. Really, she does know. She knows. This isn't gonna be like a twist or like a huge moment. It's not like a groundbreaking surprise. It's just kind of cool. But yeah, she's very sweet and kind. Everyone in the Volturi likes her. And when Aro goes up to her like, well, I gotta kill this guy, she's like, I know you can do it, honey. There will be a lengthy period of time in which the viewer is kept guessing as to how much she knows about Aro's feelings for Carlisle and whether she would be upset to know that Aro still has some kinds of feelings for Carlisle. She seems nice, they seem to be in love, but Aro still feels something for Carlisle. Is she jealous? Are her feelings hurt? No, the first time she and Carlisle are in a scene together, she will go out of her way to be like, hey Carlisle, like a little bit flirty. And Aro is also a little bit flirty. They're both a little bit flirty. She's also gonna flirt with Esme. It's gonna be a whole thing. Again, she's not gonna be doing anything plot relevant. Maybe we'll give her Renata's power just to simplify things. In canon, there's a Volturi member named Renata whose thing is that she can keep people from attacking. Like, if you try to attack her, you can't. Mentally, you cannot keep going towards her. You'll just be like, oh, no, I guess. Not only her, she can also extend that to like other people, which is why they keep her around. She's meant to be around Aro, and so if you try to attack Aro, you just kinda can't. This is a mental power, so of course it doesn't work when Bella's shield is involved. We could give that to Sulpicia, and I guess that would keep her involved in more scenes, because then she has to be in the room more often. Although I do think I kind of like the idea of her having no power, just because it's like, okay, so we know that Aro keeps her around because he genuinely loves her. We know this because she doesn't have a power, she's not inherently beneficial. I think I like that better, so I think we're gonna keep Renata as someone. Last on the list is Heidi. Heidi lures the prey. Canonically, that's her whole thing, is that she has this quality about her that makes it so that humans will follow her. Not so much so that they are in a full-on trance, because it's mentioned that at least some of them realize there's something wrong as they're being brought to their deaths. Heidi's whole thing is she brings large groups of humans into the lair of the masters under the guise of giving tours of the castle so they can be consumed for sustenance. Let's give her a little bit of dimension. I think we're gonna give her kind of a collector vibe. Before each tour, she takes a picture with the whole tour group, and she used to have all of the pictures hanging in her room, a la Rose from Get Out. After this many years doing it, even factoring in how few of them involved cameras existing, she probably has run out of room in her living quarters, a la Rapunzel from Tangled. So she probably has her own dedicated gallery somewhere on the premises where she just hangs pictures of herself with all the tour groups. Paint the walls some more, I'm sure there's room somewhere, then I'll brush and brush and brush. Before cameras, she would just have the prey write their names in a little logbook, and she still does that. She has whole shelves of those books, and she gets really excited whenever she brings in someone with a name she hasn't collected yet. Oh, I've never had a insert name here before. We're gonna establish this kind of subtly as early as season 2. While Edward and Bella and Alice are being taken to see Aro after Edward's failed public sparkling, after that, they pass by Heidi while she's kind of collecting the tour group, like greeting them, like the tour group has been in a lobby or something like that, atrium type area, and she is greeting them, getting everyone to sign the logbook, and she says something like, Aurelia, I've never had an Aurelia before, but like with an actually unusual name. Then Edward and Bella move past her. They don't see her in the building after that. They have their conversation with Aro. That whole scene plays out. As they're leaving, Heidi's bringing the tour group into the Masters to be eaten, set up, and pay off. And obviously we'll get more of her in season 5. I think she'll run into Leah around the Volturi compound and start up a conversation. Her charisma is not just supernatural, she is genuinely good at conversation. But she and Leah eventually end up discussing what she does for the Volturi, and Leah is horrified by what she does. She's horrified by what she does, how she does it, how casually she describes it. Heidi's just like, hey, predator prey, it's the circle of life. They die quickly and cleanly. Most of them don't even have time to fear, and I carry their names and their stories with me. It's not exactly a novel idea, but remember how Hunger Games fans used to like to talk about how Caesar Flickerman remembers all the kids he interviewed? We're giving Heidi a tiny dash of that, but just enough to keep it interesting. And that's everyone. I hit my chest with the laptop lid, but lid, not lid, screen would be the laptop screen. I hit myself with the laptop screen, but yeah, that's all of the characters I have for this video. My throat hurts, my mom called in the middle of it. Have a great day, enjoy life, look outside at the trees and stars. You are just as valuable as they are because you are a part of the natural world. Little bitty Desiderata reference right there. Drink some water. Good to stay hydrated. Eat some healthful foods that you enjoy and are not allergic to. Call your loved ones on the phone, or if you know that they, like myself, don't like phone calls, please text them instead. Or FaceTime. FaceTime is actually okay most of the time. It removes the pressure to be talking constantly. I don't know. FaceTime's better. I find FaceTime to be better. And have a great day!